Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Postgame Huddle, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I'm Mark Givler. We got Devin Radcliffe here with me today on the live reaction show. Ohio State in the process of finishing off Indiana, a dominant second, third quarter performance from the Buckeyes after a bit of a slow start again. And looks like they're going to beat Indiana by 3 scores here. Devin, as the game wraps up, and we'll get you the final score here when it's official, about 2 minutes away. But as the game wraps up here, how good of a performance was this? Obviously, people are going to be upset with the way the game started. It was a little sloppy in the first quarter. That's been a trend. But once again, this team just seems to find a way after the first 10, 15 minutes of the game to flip a switch.
I'll go back to my theme for the season, and really in November, survive and advance. At this point, it's not about impressing anybody other than winning. You can find things to nitpick, and we'll talk about on the show, and it'll get talked about everywhere. You can start with slow start, whatnot. But at the end of the day, just win and advance. And let everything else is out of your control. Just win and advance.
Yeah, and Indiana might get a late touchdown here, so we might be looking at like a 31-14 final. We'll keep everyone updated. They're down in on the goal line basically, so might get a late touchdown, which will look good for them on the blind resume or whatever when the playoff committee ultimately decides the 12 teams. A 17-point loss would obviously look better than a 24-point loss. What was it today about the defense? It just felt like after that first drive where they just kind of let Indiana go right down the field and they didn't really do much in terms of blitzing or bringing extra pressure or really mixing up anything. And then all of a sudden, just the blitzes came. You didn't always know where they were coming from. They sent a couple of full house blitzes. Jack Sawyer, JT, they seem to meet at the quarterback like 4 times today. Where I don't know which, we'll be interested to see what they get credit for as far as sacks go, but they both were just meeting at the quarterback. They were beating their guys. This was, to me, a tremendous defensive effort. Like, maybe all things considered, maybe the best of the Jim Knowles era.
Not sure about that yet. Would have to sit and think about it a little bit longer. Penn State game comes to mind as well, where they didn't allow a single touchdown. That's off the top of my head, just this season. If I was going to try and use a little analogy, it's almost like the first drive was Jim Knowles figuring out how much he was going to need today in terms of what he was going to have to call. Maybe use a boxing analogy, just throw jabs and see if they could handle the jabs. And, Indiana went down the field, broke through the jab, if you will, and, scored that first opening series touchdown. And then, Jim Knowles said, all right, well, this is what I'm going to need. And, found something with his pressure package, really unloaded on Indiana today. And, where I think I saw at one point Ohio State had more sacks or was close to having more sacks than Indiana, even had completions at one point in this game. So, a lot of credit to Coach Knowles and the defensive guys for making that adjustment and really getting after the Indiana offense.
Yeah, and Indiana did punch it in, so it's they're going for 2. So looking like either 31-13, 31-15 going to be the final here in all likelihood. But and I don't usually do this. There's also recruiting news coming. Jameer Brown, 5-star wide receiver from Ohio, Huber Heights, Wayne, 2027 prospect, commits to the Buckeyes about 10 minutes ago. So we have a story on that on the front page as well. So the recruiting impact is already coming in as well. So I wanted to get that out there for people who are maybe watching the game right now or have us up on a screen or whatever and aren't really paying attention to Twitter or anything. So Jameer, we knew this was coming. We hinted at it on the site a couple hours ago. And so Ohio State's landed the number 1 prospect, maybe regardless of class in the state of Ohio right now. Jameer Brown's special. So he's in the class. So all good things today for the Buckeyes. 31-15 right now over Indiana. That would likely be the final. Devin, what do you think the biggest cause was it simply just the Oregon game? Just like, hey, what we're doing defensively isn't working. There's been such a turnaround in terms of not just result. It's not just results. It's the way they're playing defense.
I guess it's easy to go back and look at the Oregon game and say, hey, you know what? There's a hard line in the sand from what the defense looked like Oregon and to the beginning of the year and from the bye week on. In terms, it's almost looks like two different defenses once the ball snapped. But the only thing they have in common at this point is there's 11 guys on the field, and 4 of them have their hand in the ground most of the time to start the play. But other than that, there has been a huge adjustment in what the defense looks like since the Oregon game.
Who stood out for you today, I guess? I've got my thoughts. I've got some, we'll get to my 3 and out here in a minute, but was there anyone that jumped out? Because there were so many. I thought there were so many good performances today on defense. And there was on offense as well, but just so many good performances today on defense. Was there a guy that you thought really drove play for them?
Well, it seemed like every time they needed a play, Cody Simon came up with it for most of the game. I think he at one point had 2.5 sacks or 3 sacks or something to that stat line. So Cody Simon's an easy one. You got to give credit to, I know he drew a couple penalties, but by and large, I don't know how much passing yards Indiana had, but it couldn't have been more than 200. So you got to give credit to the secondary for really keeping a lid on things all game long and not surrendering the explosive plays despite the amount of pressure Coach Knowles was bringing. It's always been the concern, and you can go back, not too far back in the past where it was a feast or famine type pressure was either going to hit home or the other team scored. And today, really, secondary, despite the pressure they were bringing, really kept a lid on things.
I'm going to steal a stat from Tony Gerdeman on Twitter. Indiana's first drive, the touchdown drive, they went 70 yards. The next 8 drives, they netted 19 yards. So just an unbelievable lockdown performance against a good Indiana offense. And just, again, they said, screw it. We're bringing pressure. I thought, they seem to have something going with the Cody Simon A-gap, a lot of Cody Simon A-gap blitzes. That seemed to really be getting there. And again, I thought their 2 ends were beating, looks like they were getting a lot of singles. They were getting maybe a chip with the back, but they were getting a lot of single teams. And that was probably, a lot of that was probably the threat of the A-gap blitzes. But, in sliding protections and things, you can't really double team an end if you're getting an A-gap blitz. So as far as that, it just felt like they threw caution to the wind on a lot of this, but I thought everyone was kind of winning their battles up front.
Well, you're still gonna have to do that. When you bring pressure, you still got to win at that point of contact. You still got to win. You still, at some point, it's 11-11. You got to be able to run through a dude. No matter how creative your blitz pressure is, it doesn't work if you don't run through the guy. And you saw to the point about some of the pressures we're seeing. Jim Knowles has really found a sweet spot with some of these zone pressures he's been dialing up, and he went back to a few of them today. You're seeing him break, bring stunts, and drop a defensive lineman out late. I know you go back to the Oregon game we compared it to, and they drew a lot of that pressure, criticism for that attempted show, no go. They only ended up blitzing 2 guys or bringing 2 guys on pressure that didn't quite, it obviously didn't hit right. Well, they're starting to get better at that technique. Jack Sawyer's looping A-gap pressure sack he got there, and I believe it was the 3rd quarter. Well, if you look to the opposite side of the line, watch JT Tuamalo, start his steps up the field, start his rush up the field, and then bail out late. So again, you still got to honor that threat of a pass rush. But again, you want to talk about, adjustments as the season's progressed. Not necessarily the biggest running threat they've necessarily faced at a quarterback position. But again, if that quarterback breaks contain, or if they have a running back leak out late, all of a sudden you have an athletic defensive end who you thought was rushing is now working his way back to the middle field to potentially pick up some sort of something happening if they beat the blitz. So again, there haven't been necessarily all-out pressures, even though they look like that. It's just been, credit to what the defensive staff has done, adjusting the ways in which they bring pressure, and I guess to put 2 conversations together a bit more safely than they've done in the past.
Yeah, I was really impressed with what I saw today, schematically, and obviously the defense played very well. Looks like Trey Henderson broke a 39-yard run. The onside kick by Indiana was not successful. Trey Henderson breaks a long run, slides down at the 1-yard line. Indiana, thank you for is probably going to send a thank you card for that at the final score when the playoff committee meets. But Buckeyes are going to be taking a knee here, and it will be a 31-15 final here in just a minute as the Buckeyes are getting ready to take a knee. So, again, a great win for Ohio State. Their third top 5 matchup. They said on Fox Sports on the broadcast on Fox that this is the first team since the 2011 LSU team to play 3 regular season top 5 games. So kudos to the Buckeyes for surviving these last 2. And okay, never mind. It looks like Will Howard's going to take it in. 38-15. Wow. So Henderson slides down at the 1, and then Howard decides, you know what, we're just going to go in. I'll be very interested to hear from Ryan Day afterwards on if that was called or if Will Howard just did it. But it's going to be 38-15 Buckeyes. So Indiana rescinds their thank you for making the score look better than it was. Special teams, Devin. Caleb Downs, how about it?
Well, there's 2 things. This has been something they've been building on. We've had big special teams plays, the past few weeks, turning the momentum in ball games. And it wasn't just the Caleb Downs return. I'd say this the bad snap that resulted in the first and just outside the 10-yard line there, just short of first and goal. Caden Curry coming up again with huge punt team plays, and then obviously you got to talk about, like you said, Caleb Downs, the first punt return touchdown. Ironically, since 2014, and Jalen Marshall ran a punt return back for a touchdown in this Indiana game. If I recall correctly, that was a huge game where he had four touchdowns and almost beat Indiana himself, if I recall correctly, from 2014. So huge punt return. Watching it live, you could almost see it coming the way he was able to square up. It was almost like the worst thing that happened was that bounce. It gave him a chance to square up and set up his return. And, he makes that incredible spin move, makes a guy miss, hits that sideline. And again, you coach long enough, you see guys like this. The worst thing you could have is you see them not running fast because he's just setting up that cutback. And, he set up that cutback, kicked it into gear, ran across, cut it back across the field. Huge special teams play again. First time 10 years they've run a punt back.
Yeah, this could be a different dynamic they really haven't had in a really long time. And I'm sure they'll monitor this. I'm sure they realize this at this point, but this has got to be a thing where if the game is in doubt moving forward, like the rest of the season, Caleb Downs has to be back there. It's just a different element. I understand, like, you put Ennis back there, especially if it's going to be like a fair catch situation, like they did in the red zone earlier, where it was clearly going to be a fair catch situation, and they're up 21 points, and it's like, okay, let's not get Caleb Downs hurt here. But like any punt that takes place that has a chance of being returned, where a game is still in doubt, doesn't Caleb Downs have to be back? Just the threat of him, even earlier in the game, where he had like that little 10-yard return, he was just so shifty and was able to cut up the field. You could just kind of see it coming that he was going to break one here.
Well, before we say anything else, welcome to the week of the game, ladies and gentlemen. We're officially here. But to your point about Caleb Downs, earlier punt return, before he broke his touchdown return, you see him got about 10 yards on a return. Exactly to your point. Got about the 45 and then flipped the field so that the offense was able to take over on the opponent's Indiana side of the 50. So again, it's not necessarily always about the threat of the return. It's about stealing those 10, 12 yards back as the returner. 40-yard punt, all of a sudden you get 10, 12 back, turns into 30, 28 yards, and instead of catching the ball on the 20 yard line, you return it to the 30. Again, we talked about before on here where there's statistics that show like every 10-yard line closer you start the end zone, your chances of scoring go up 10%. So having a punt returner back there that can get you those extra 10 yards, 8-10 yards, I think is what they always talk about, the good punt returners. Just a different change the game for you as an offense. And again, you start with the ball, simply as simple as it is. You start with the ball 10 yards closer to the goal line. And you've been doing it with Caleb Downs. It seems like a little bit more each week, where if the team's punting, deeper back on their side of the field, they have Downs in there to give them that opportunity to break the big return there. And, they still work innocent there. We saw them there kind of in the fair catch scenario. Again, to try and save you some wear and tear on Downs. But again, great strategy. He's one of the dynamic players in college football. So give him an opportunity to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah, we're gonna, obviously we're getting set up for Ryan Day's press conference. That'll be a few minutes down the road, but we may also want to tune into Signetti's press conference over there on the Indiana side after that late touchdown by the Buckeyes. Sounds like he wasn't very happy about that at the end, and there were obviously some nothing too crazy, but there were some barbs traded during the week and, things like that. So this was obviously a game where there was some chirping going in. And so this is going to be all sorts of fun, I think, in the post game, and maybe hearing from Ryan Day about that, last touchdown. And maybe they'll bring in Trey Henderson and we can ask him how he feels that he did the sporting thing and went down on the one. And then Will Howard vultured his touchdown from him. But this could be a fun post game. Let's go to 3 and out here while we have some time, just because I think it will take a few minutes for Ryan Day and the coaches to get to the podium. But we did talk about one of my big things, which was the special teams coming up big. You got, again, kind of an unforced error there by Indiana on the drop punt in the wet conditions, but Ohio State taking advantage and then also getting the return for touchdown. Even if some of these things aren't necessarily things that Ohio State's causing, like they've had a couple lucky breaks on special teams the last couple of weeks, but they've also forced some things with the blocked punt, with the punt return touchdown. This has been a real area of awfulness for Ohio State the last several years. This has to feel good that you're starting to see some difference-making plays in the game from your special teams, which I think the timing, not to go back over this punt return touchdown, but the timing of that, Cody Simon had just missed falling on a fumble. So it looked like Ohio State was going to get the ball around the Indiana 20, 25-yard line. And Simon was unable to fall on the loose ball that kind of was right in his lap. Indiana gets that. Then Indiana kind of misses an opportunity on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. There was some good pressure applied by Sawyer and Tuimoloau. And that kind of forced just a slightly off throw from Rourke. So Ohio State gets off the field, and then boom, Caleb Downs punt return touchdown, 21-7, blows the game open, play of the game probably. I guess how much confidence, does this give you as a team when all three phases seem to be starting to make things happen?
Well, you go back to, if you want to go back Ohio State history, you have Coach Urban Meyer obviously talked about every possession needs to end in a kick. In terms of the importance of the punt team, obviously go back to trestle ball and everything that meant about special teams, basically play to set it up for your field goal kicker. I'm saying that jokingly, of course. But again, it seems like it has been that missing part or component here the past couple of years, especially of the Ryan Day era, and to see them take that, close the gap and make that an actual legitimate part of your team, and not just setting up for a fair catch, but actually, like I was just talking about, you're getting 10 yards on a punt return, setting your offense up 10 yards closer to the goal line because your punt return play, how it changes your opponent's punt package, because you have the threat of actually hitting home on punt pressure. They may take a rugby style punter, threat of a fake, and say, hey, you know what, we're just going to max protect this punt it away. Little things like that don't necessarily show up on the highlight reel that show up in the game. Again, it's one of those things that separates good teams from great teams. If you want to go back through history, I'm sure if you looked at every team that's won a championship at any level, special teams changed the game, was a bit at some point or another during the championship run.
Yeah, so Buckeyes starting to figure things out. The other thing we talked about, my 3 and out, was getting pressure. Just pressure is perfect, as I put it, but just getting more pressure on the quarterback. This has been a thing as far as criticisms of Ohio State in the past, of the team not getting enough pressure, not getting enough sacks in these big games. They had 5 sacks today. They had countless other pressures that forced errant throws. This is something I have harped about for a few years now. They're bringing extra pressure now. Not only did Jack and JT played great today. They got great effort from the front four, but just the added dynamic of guys like Cody Simon and Sonny Styles, and they get Lathan Ransom involved and Caleb Downs involved in some of these blitzes sometimes. Just the added dynamic of bringing extra pressure. I think it's a game changer. I understand the desire to want to get pressure with just your front four. I understand how much easier that makes life on your back seven. I get that philosophy, but ultimately, when you have pressure coming from different parts of the field, you don't know who's blitzing, you don't know where it's coming from, when it's coming, and your front four is rolling. It just feels to me like that's the much tougher defense to prepare for than the defense that just wants to get pressure with their front four. Even if they're able to do so, you always kind of know what's coming. Whereas when you bring that extra pressure, to me, it adds a different element to what the offense is trying to do as far as the mental component of trying to track where everybody is.
If you look at the evolution of defense here, say the past 5 years, let's say 5-6 years, that's really the way the defense has evolved, where it's really come down to evolved to bringing 4 or 5 guys, but it's really changing who those 4 or 5 guys are and where they are blitzing from. Last week you saw Ohio State blitzing corners, for example, against Northwestern. Typically from Ohio State, you see, someone from the second level, whether it be one of the 2 linebackers. Saw that today. Obviously, Cody Simon had a monster game. Sonny Styles typically blitzed. One of the go-to blitzes we're seeing Jim Knowles is a double field pressure with the Mike linebacker and the nickel, both blitzing off the edge on a 5-man pressure. So it's changing up where the pressure is coming from, forcing your pass protection to account for all kinds of threats from all different angles. Another one of the Jim Knowles go-to pressures is bringing his boundary safety on an interior rush from the 3rd level. Lathan Ransom's been phenomenal at it this season. Speaking of your forced fumble that Simon jumped on, that was caused by another one phenomenal effort by Lathan Ransom to punch the ball out. I mean, that was not a fluke fumble where the defender got lucky and put his helmet in the right place. I mean, Lathan Ransom, you watch the replay of it, he punched the ball out. So it was, again, obviously Ohio State didn't turn up with it, but that was still a phenomenal intentional play by Lathan Ransom to cause almost forced fumble there defensively. So again, it's to circle back to pressure. It's not about necessarily overwhelming the offensive line, like say the 2022 edition of the Jim Knowles defense was, where we're just going to bring more than you can block and play zero coverage. We're really seeing, again, Coach Knowles get more into what he was doing at Oklahoma State, where I'm going to bring pressure, but we're going to play some zone defense behind it. So if it does leak out, if you do beat the pressure, we're still going to have guys behind it to put the ball on the ground and turn it, like I like to say, is we're going to turn an 80-yard gain into 8 and, make the offense snap the ball again instead of surrendering the big plays. But when you bring, 7 guys and the ball does leak, there's no one there to put the ball on the ground.
Yep. I completely agree with everything you just said about, playing a little bit safer behind, but you have to stress the opposing team's offense. You have to stress their offensive line. You have to stress their quarterback. You have to stress their running back in pass protection. And they've done that, and that, they're starting to really build on that each week. And it's to me is going to make a huge difference for them in these big games coming up. But my third thing was just on the 3 and out today was the momentum swings. This game had a ton of early momentum swings, especially the first quarter and into the second quarter. And I just felt like Ohio State keeping their composure was a huge part in them being able to put this thing away and kind of win comfortably. You don't blink on the interception you threw. You don't blink. Cody Simon doesn't get the fumble. That's okay, because we're fine. We're going to go back at that. We're going to get a pressure on the next play, force an incompletion, force a punt. and take the punt to the house. I mean, just the way they responded every time Indiana seemed to land a punch, or in some cases, every time Indiana seemed to avoid getting hit. The way they responded, I thought was so impressive. And I thought we've seen this a lot. We saw this against Penn State, the responses. I thought we saw it a lot on the offense in the Oregon game. I thought we saw the offense respond quite a bit throughout that game. This is a team that does not seem to let things linger with them, let bad plays linger, let momentum just completely get away from them for long stretches of time.
No, it's a great observation, great point. And again, we have seen it all season long. Penn State's a great example of it. I mean, that game was a disastrous start as you could possibly imagine for the Ohio State. But to your point, it's a sign of a veteran team, a mature group. I don't know how many seniors are starting or multi-year starters that are starting on this team. So there is something to be said for guys that have been there before, done that before. And again, football is a game, it's easy to get caught up in the rah-rah, guys getting hyped up. That obviously comes with it. But at some point, you can't just run on emotion during the course of the football game. And if anything, this game is an example of that, where let's just say Indiana's hyped up, the adrenaline's pumping, and they go right down the field and score. They get Ohio State off the field on a 3-and-out, or get a 3-and-out and go straight down the field and score. But at some point, that emotion wears off, the adrenaline wears off, and you resort back to you go back to what's your training, what's your default, how do you execute? I guess you could call it discipline. You go back to your training, and you saw that with Ohio State today, where like, all right, hey, we took a shot. It's okay. We still got a lot of ball play here. Let's settle down, play our game. And over the course of the game, you saw that how the game unfolded. After that, you mentioned the stat earlier. Indiana had 80 yards and a touchdown on the first possession, and then up until that last scoring drive, they had 20 yards on their next 8 possessions there. So you see that once the emotion wears off and training takes over, sign of a veteran team.
Yep. As we wait here for Ryan Day and also Indiana's Curt Signetti, we will probably go to Curt Signetti as soon as he comes up, just because, again, he was not happy with that late touchdown by the Buckeyes. And so we're going to want to get his thoughts on that and see what his mood is coming out to answer the questions, because that's got a chance to be a viral moment, I think. We'll see how he responds, and obviously we'll move around. The good news is that if you follow us before, we bounce around a little bit on the post game stuff, but we upload all of the full press conference videos to the channel at the end of the show. So if you wanted to watch the entire Curt Signetti thing and we flip to Ryan Day before you're ready for us to do that, you can go watch the entire Curt Signetti press conference on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And the same vice versa. If you didn't care what Curt Signetti thought about the late touchdown and just wanted to see all of Ryan Day, then you can do that as well on the channel after our show. You can go get all of Ryan Day's press conference. So don't worry if we jump around a little bit. You can still watch everything. Quickly get to my game ball, because it doesn't look like they're out there yet. Jim Knowles. I can't sit here and be critical when the defense doesn't perform as I think it should, when the defense isn't doing what some of the things I think they should be doing. And then when they go and change those things and they do what I've said they should be doing, bringing more pressure and just playing better as in general, I can't then not give credit where it's due. I thought Jim Knowles called a fantastic game today. I thought the defense was a huge part of this thing today. The sacks were great. You had the pressures. You were able to really, I thought the defense turned the game in many respects in this game, just by forcing Curtis Rourke into incompletions that very clearly would have been completions without the pressure that was applied. And just the way they attacked this game after a slow start on both sides of the ball, but especially how the offense needed to take some time to get rolling. So Jim Knowles, I thought, Cody Simon could have got this as well, but I felt it was important to if I'm going to be critical of Jim Knowles like I was after the Oregon game and like I've been after other big games, and then he comes out and the defense does what they did today, I have to also give credit when that happens. So Jim Knowles game ball, had a great game today, had the team prepared, did everything they needed to do. You freed Sonny Styles, which is, again, been one of my other things. You freed him to just be an animal out there, running around, making plays. So great job today by the defense, and Jim Knowles deserving game ball. As far as what they do now moving forward, you get immediately into Michigan week. How much do you think they left on the table there that they didn't show? Because they did a lot today. I mean, it didn't feel like it was a vanilla game plan, especially on defense, maybe a little bit on offense, but like it didn't feel like a super vanilla game plan. How much do you think how much chicken's still on the bone for next week?
If you go back and look at the history of this game, at least as long as I can remember, there's always something that is saved for this game from both teams. To give credit where credit's due, there's always something saved up. There's something both teams have got saved up all year long. First thing I could think of is, I don't know, I haven't had a chance to watch many U of M games this year, but have they thrown a halfback pass yet this season? To think of something that they've seen. Ohio State defensively has got to prepare for. Conversely, who knows what Ryan Day's got saved up. You think about Jim Tressel and Ted Ginn sneaking in at tight end.
And we got Kurt Signetti. So let's get there real quick and see what he has to say. I think. Well, did I? Yep, he's here. Okay.
All right. Well, in life, all good things come to an end eventually. I give Ohio State a lot of credit. They dominated the football game. Thought we got off to a good start. And good football game there for a while, 7-7. Came up with a turnover on defense and a fourth down stop. And then we got a first down on offense at 7-7. And then we come up 3rd and 1. And by all indications, they jumped off sides, which would have given us a first down. But, we got called for the penalty. I'm not sure they made the correct call. And we came up 3rd and 6, and we got sacked. And from that point on, and I'm not saying the game would have been different on that call. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's where the game really changed, I'd say, is around that point. We couldn't protect the quarterback. We had communication errors in pass pro. Every time we dropped back to pass, something bad happened. And it seemed like we were in that end zone to our left for 5 years. It was like a nightmare. We dropped a punt down back there. And really, we were fortunate to go into halftime only 7 points down. And they've been a great third quarter team, Ohio State. Couldn't get anything going still on offense. They had big punt return, So I was proud of the way we fought back and got it to within 2 scores there, 31-15, but didn't like the fact that we gave up the run and the easy touchdown at the end. But they won. They deserved to win. They're a terrific football team. And coupled with the noise, it made it a very, very, very challenging day for us. And I give them nothing but credit. Nothing we haven't seen on tape. We practiced all week long. I think you couple it with the noise and having to go to a silent count because center couldn't hear. And then the speed at which they do it at compared to our scout team and the pressure of the moment, our guys just didn't respond very well. And sometimes we had missed assignments, sometimes we had communication error, sometimes we got physically beat. But it wasn't very pretty. No, I think we came out. I felt good at halftime. And here's how I felt. We were down 14-7, fortunate to be only 7. That's how I felt. And all we had to do is get our feet back on the ground and kind of settle the game down a little bit. And that the longer the game went, the pressure then would shift to them. If we could stay within striking distance. But then they had those scores, and we just couldn't respond. We did start to get a little ground game going, but, we'd call a pass and get sacked and get way behind the chains. So I was proud that we scored that last touchdown, and made the 2-point conversion, 31-15. You're kicking an onside kick. Now, who knows, but then, so I mean, that's that.
We shut them down. What was the key to doing that?
I just think we had to settle in a little bit. First drive, they kind of we didn't get really get off the field at that time. But I mean, we just wanted to settle in and knock them back up front and really win first down. And I think we did a good job. And when we were able to pass rush, a lot of good things happened. So.
Over to the left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Cody, it felt like you guys played with a lot of confidence out there, like you guys wanted to make a statement. I guess just what do you feel like all that came from today?
No, I just think it all speaks to our preparation during the week. We know these games are going to be big. We know the crowd's going to be a big factor, but we just want to be able to play with some fun, rally around our teammates and, really just have a good time out there because you don't get these moments a lot. It's top 5 matchup, so we just want to take advantage of it.
Over here to the right, Austin Ward, the podcast.
Cody, when those opportunities to blitz are called and it's going to be your turn, what goes through your mind? It just seems like you're really thriving in those situations right now.
Yeah, what I focus on really just doing my job. We practice those a lot during the week, and I just try to do what they tell me to do, and just rely on my instincts that they give me. And I'm thankful I was in that position, and I'm really just happy that we were able to get those stops.
Over to the left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Cody, the blitz packages are just working better this half of the season. Are you guys putting in new stuff, or is the stuff you tried all along maybe just working now better?
That's probably a better question for Coach Knowles. I mean, whatever he puts up in front of us, we just try to do it to the best of our ability, and I trust everything he does. So, whatever he puts in front of us, we're just going to execute. We're trying to execute to the best of our ability, and then just go from there.
And over here to the right, this will be the last question for Cody. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Cody, are you noticing just the defensive line getting a little bit more push and allowing you to get where you need to be on those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% thankful for them because, I mean, I got to – for me to make plays, they make plays too. So, they're holding gaps off for me, and, I'm thankful we have them up front because they do the dirty work, and, I always try to give thanks to the D-line.
Great. Cody, thank you very much. All right, folks, we're going to bring Jack Sawyer up to the main podium and send Caden Curry to one of the back ones. Open up the questions here for Jack. Okay. You know what we're going to actually do? Jack, I'm going to move you back to one of the tables as well. Sorry about that. So we got Jack, Caden Curry, and Emeka Abuka at the 3 back tables, folks.
Jack played. I didn't get him up here.
Yeah, we'll open it up the floor for Coach Day. Over here to the right, Austin Ward, the podcast.
Right. It seemed like, I don't know, this week that you've kind of had an edge about you. Some of the Pat McAfee comments yesterday got a lot of attention, and it seemed like the team also played with a little bit of an edge that was different today. What's the root of that?
There's probably a lot that goes into it, but that's the way you got to play the game of football. That's the mentality that we have to have, and we know that we want to be playing our best football. We also know what was at stake. You don't win this game, you have no chance to go to Indianapolis and play in the Big Ten championship, and that's real. And we've had that approach here for a few weeks now, or more than that. And I got to say, I thought the crowd was awesome. I thought our guys played with great passion. I thought the two of them just played off of each other the entire game. I think the fact that they had to go to a silent cadence did make a difference in this game. It certainly did. They tried to clap early. They couldn't. They went to the silent cadence, and that made a huge difference in the game. So, give the fans so much credit. I thought they brought great energy. I thought during Caleb's return, it was one of the loudest I've heard it in a while. And but our guys just played with a chip today, and that's the way you got to play the game of football.
Over to the left, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, Ryan, are you heading to Vegas right after this since you guaranteed a punt return for a touchdown and it came to fruition? What did you see there? And was there ever a question of him not returning punts in terms of injury or the risk reward there?
Yes. Oh yeah. We take everything into consideration. And we made the decision a couple of weeks ago that we felt Caleb, really about midway through the season, after the Oregon game, we just felt like Caleb needs to be more involved and make more an impact on games. I think that what's been happening on defense, has kind of shown that that's happened. And then we felt like as a punt returner, he was dynamic with the ball in his hands. When he was in high school, I saw it live and in color. I felt like he could play running back here at Ohio State. And when you're in the special teams, meetings every day and putting the work in that these guys are putting in, it's a great example to the other players that, you may not see the results, but if you trust the process, good things are going to happen. And now, we've had 3 weeks in a row, we've had a punt block and then, and now a punt return for a touchdown. And those are big plays in matchup games. Those are the things that we got to have. I felt like we made some good personnel changes there. And Brian Hartline deserves a lot of credit. He's the one that heads up the punt return. And, he and Rob Keys, it's everybody. We all coach it. Tim Walton coaches the jammers, which I thought Denzel and Jermaine did a great job on that play. I'm going to go back and watch the film, but there was great effort on that play. And so that's one of those things we got to make sure that we celebrate the efforts on those plays, because those are game-changing plays. And but give Caleb, all the credit he deserves. I felt like we had a chance to return it based on what had happened earlier in the game. If the jammers gave us a chance, the punt was a little short, and I said, "Oh man, here we go again," because we've had a lot of short punts. It bounced off the turf, and Caleb's, decides he's gonna return it. Made a few guys miss, and then just some great effort on that play to go turn good into great, and again a game-changing play.
Over to the right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Ryan, the end of the game offensively for you, that was an interesting sequence. Trey goes down at the 1 yard line. You decide to run 2 plays anyways to score. What was that decision all about, and was there anything to that?
Well, at the end of the game, we're in a 4-minute drill, like you saw in the Penn State game. We call that downtime, which means, once we get the first down in that moment, we feel like the game's probably over. He scored it free and brought it all the way down to the 1 yard line. And I think maybe it triggered like at the last second, oh boy, I got to get down here. So we didn't have to put our defense back on the field. Then we decided to at least milk 45 seconds off the clock. We're on the 1 yard line, and we just felt like we wanted to put an exclamation point on the win by go ahead and sneaking it in.
Over to the left, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, there's a lot of talk about Indiana being the most explosive passing offense you played since that Oregon game. What can you say about the game plan Jim put together, or just what the defense did that seemed to rattle Curtis Rourke all day?
Yeah, I felt like the plan going in was excellent, but and I thought the defensive staff did a great job with it. I felt like Jim had a great plan. I thought Tim and Matt both did an excellent job all week. I thought Larry's guys played with their hair on fire. I thought James did a nice job. So I think everybody on the defensive side deserves credit. But like we talked about this week, this game is played by players, not coaches. It's about players. And our players played hard today. And I felt like the defensive line won the line of scrimmage. I felt like we got after their offensive line in terms of getting into the backfield. I thought our guys in the secondary covered well because we knew they were going to take shots down the field. We still have too many of these pass interference calls that we got to get cleaned up. That's just the truth. But and I thought the linebackers, at least it looked like on film, were timing up the blitzes really well and getting into the backfield.
Over to the right, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Right, I know you want to celebrate a win like this as much as possible, second top 5 win of the season, but now comes the game that a lot of the people on this roster came back for, including some guys in this room. How do you quickly make that turnaround and get ready for the Michigan game next week?
Yeah, well, it's just that. We know we need to at least celebrate and enjoy the win, but it's not going to be a late night. We all need to get to bed. We need to get our rest. We need to enjoy it. You can't just, have a top 5 win like this and just move on. The minute it hit 000 on that clock, it was on to the team up north, on to the rivalry game. We know what's coming and how important this week is for everybody in the state of Ohio and Buckeye Nation, and most importantly, our team and our obligation to play really well next week and win that game. But we also need to make sure, we take a deep breath and recognize the things that happened today. We'll do that tomorrow during our champions meeting, celebrate the guys who played really well, and then move on because, it's easy just to move on, but there's a lot of work that gets put into a win like this, and it's a top 5 win. So we'll get some good rest tonight. Make sure we get to bed early, and then we'll wake up tomorrow and make sure we get back to work.
Folks, we're going to do 2 more questions with Coach Day, and then we're going to bring Caleb up for a handful of questions, and then Will. And I do want to share that Will completed 80% of his passes for the 6th time this season. That's a single season and a career record. No other Ohio State quarterback's ever done it. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Yeah, on that subject, Ryan, Will's start, I think he was 14 of 14 and was really seeming to spin it. What are you seeing from him in his preparation that makes him get off to these starts? Whether it's, early in the season, 10 for 10, I think he's had 3 or 4 of those, and then today 14 of 14. What do you see from that makes him so good early?
I think Buckeye Nation is now seen after 11 games. This guy is a winner. He's tough. He cares about his teammates. He's a leader. There was a tough spot this week when we lost Seth in practice, and he, along with the offensive line, Donnie and Josh, really just raised, the spirits of everybody. And that's hard to do when you lose somebody who makes such an impact like Seth. But he's got great resilience, great toughness. He's the heart and soul of our team. But there's more to it than just Will. We look at the way Travion ran today. I thought Travion played his tail off today. How hard he ran, how physical he ran. I thought Quinshawn had some good runs, but Carson Hinsman stepping up and playing center, and Austin. So there's a lot of things that we need to celebrate. And after a game like this, and you feel like you want to make sure you're recognizing those guys, but like somebody said, it's going to be on in the next game quickly, and we got to learn from it, keep growing, because there is some things coming out of this game that I wasn't very happy with. Especially the way we're down in the red zone, don't get in early on. We have a turnover there in the red zone. That could have been a whole different score at halftime. And that was not good. But we were resilient. The crowd just kept swinging. It was awesome. You could just feel the crowd was like, there's no way this thing's going to go any other way. And that's kind of how it all played out.
Final question for Coach Dave. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
You just kind of talked about it a little bit, but a major storyline was the offensive line coming into this game. How do you think it held up? Run game was spotty, but no sacks, against Will.
Yeah, well, when you look at the number of plays, they were huddling, we were huddling. We ended up with 55 plays on a short field. So, the numbers aren't going to be as gaudy as maybe like we've talked about in the past when you're talking about 55 plays. That's 30 less plays than we used to get. So the numbers won't look that way. So I'll go off of what I saw on the field. I felt like guys were getting after it. I felt like, some of the plays that guys were just straining. And this style of defense, there is people moving every play and shifting and changing the fronts. And there were times where there were free guys in a hole, and I thought our running backs, ran downhill. But the game plan was that, if there might be a couple free guys, near the line of scrimmage, but we were going to come off the ball and not play hesitant trying to figure all that out. I think they played hard, and I thought they protected well when Will was in pass protection.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys, thanks.
Hey, folks, if we can start to finish up with Emeka in the back, we're going to bring Caleb Downs up to the front now, over to the left. Yep, right there, please, Caleb. Over to the left, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Caleb, on your punt return, when the ball's bouncing, is there any doubt in your mind that you're going to pick it up? Can you just kind of walk us through that whole moment?
No, there was no doubt that I was going to field it. There was space there, and everybody did a really good job blocking on punt return unit. And we talked about it all week that we had a real opportunity to do it this week. And just a true blessing from God to really be able to put it in the end zone.
Over here to the right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Caleb, you've always been really good with the ball in your hands. You can Google that, right? But the bottom line is, and what was it like to get out there in the open field and do something like that? Ryan Day's been hinting about that for a while now, about you, and then the C.J. Hicks block near the end of that.
It felt like it was normal. It felt like it was the right thing for me to have the ball in my hands, to be in the field of play. And then, as I said, they did a really good job blocking. CJ told me that he put somebody on the ground at the end of the play, so I got to go back and look at that.
What do you think flipped the game today? What was that moment that flipped this game from your vantage point?
Really, I think it's just a collective of the whole game. I would say at the beginning of the game we were a little shaky, but I would say after we went up by 7, it was really just, all right, we got out of halftime. It was like, okay, we got to do our jobs, and then yeah, we just got to do our jobs, and we're going to dominate.
Over to the left, Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Caleb, in what way can you put into words the run this defense has been on the last 4 or 5 games?
I would just say process oriented, just truly trying to get prepared every week, trying to get ourselves in the best position and the best mindset to play, and really go into the game like they're not going to score. We're dominating the whole game. And at the end of the game, we let up a few plays that we really should not have. So we can't do that again, and we got to finish and play full 60 minutes. But really just go into the game like we're dominating and nobody's gonna move the ball, score the ball on us, and that's what we're going to do.
And final question for Caleb, Lori Schmidt to the left, the Columbus Dispatch.
Caleb, Mecca said someone had called your TD, that they said that here it's coming, it's going to go to the house. Do you recall who that was?
So I just see it on my phone. Tegan Jr. said it on TV earlier today, and that was the craziest thing because he told me probably like 3-4 weeks ago. He was like, "Do you get back there? You're gonna score." I was like, "Okay," and then he did that. And then Will said on the sideline that he said it before the play happened. So I commend him for that too.
Great, Caleb. Thank you very much.
Appreciate y'all. God bless.
All right. I think we're getting Will Howard, maybe not. Yes, we are.
Delaware Gazette.
Will, Jerry just told us that you completed 80% of your passes for the 6th time this year. First person who's ever done that in program history, whether in a season or career. What does that mean to you, and what kind of rhythm do you think you're in right now?
That's cool, man. But really doesn't mean that much to me as long as we're winning games, man. That's really all that matters to me. Like I said, completion percentage, and if it's a good completion percentage, it means I'm making good decisions with the football and keeping us on track. So as long as we're winning games, I'm not really worried about stats.
To say after this game, it seemed like you were really fired up. Just meant a lot to you. Any thoughts on that?
No, man. I just, I'm just proud of this team, man. I'm proud of this university. I'm proud of Buckeye Nation for showing up and being loud and making an impact on the game. Having them go on the silent count, that really makes a difference. It really does. And truly, that was the loudest I've ever heard Ohio Stadium. That was the loudest I've ever heard it in there. It was turned up, man. After that, I don't think I've ever gone crazier on a sideline than I did after Caleb's punt return. I think that was really what sealed the game for us right there. Like that just put him out of it. Got a lot of respect for what they do and what Coach Signet has done over there. They've had a heck of a turnaround, man. But, you got to remember you're coming in to play the Buckeyes, man. It's a little different.
Over to the left, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Will, what do you remember telling Caleb before he went back there for that touchdown? And I guess what made you so bullish on him taking it back?
I didn't say anything to him. I forget who was next to me, but I go, Two's taking this 74 yards at the crib right here. Watch this. And, you guys saw what he did. So he's a special player, man. He might be one of the best football players I've been around, just period. He's just so instinctual, so smart. And, you see what he does with the ball in his hands, and he's a defensive player. So, you can watch the film, turn it on. He's a heck of a player. All right, Mac.
Over to the right, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Well, I know you want to enjoy a win like this, but now you're going to turn around and play a game that a lot of your teammates came back to play in. Just talk about your anticipation, excitement to play against Michigan next week.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I'm like I said, I'm stoked. I'm fired up. This one's for those guys that came back. This one's for Buckeye Nation. We've been, I feel it, man. I can just feel it. There's been that hurt the last 3 years. This rivalry game, it's the first thing that I heard when I came here on my visit. Beat the team up north. And it's the first goal we have every single year. Beat the team up north. And, you could say anything about records, man. That's going to be a hard game every single year. They're going to bring it. We're going to bring it. And I want to do this, man, for Coach Day. I want to do this for the guys that came back, for Emeka, for Trey, for JT, for Jack, for all those guys that came back, Tyleek, Ty, I could go on. But I want this for them so bad because they've been here. I've seen it from a distance, and, I feel it, and I'm a part of it now, and I want this for me too, but I want this for those guys. I want it for Coach Day. Shut up the haters and be able to go out there and say, man, this is the Ohio State Buckeyes, and this rivalry game means everything, man. We talk about it all the time. It's all over the place in our building, and I'm just honored to be able to be a part of it, and I won't take it lightly. And this is the biggest game of our season, and I'm looking forward to it, man.
Over to the left, Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Well, what was your
role, what kind of leadership role did you take in helping this offensive line get ready this week? And then secondly, how well did Carson play?
I'm so proud of those guys, man, for him and Austin to step into new roles. You know, Austin was playing right guard early in the season. Now he's playing left guard. You know, for those guys to be able to step in like they did, I was just so proud of them. And really all week, you know, I just told those guys, I was like, dude, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about you guys. You guys have played a ton of football. Carson started 12 games last year, and he's a good football player. I wasn't worried about it at all. I just hurt for Seth, you know. That was the biggest thing on my heart, was that I just hurt for my brother who just lost the rest of his season. And I told those guys, man, like, I'm not worried about, you know, you can say whatever you want about who we throw in there. I don't care. Like, you know, it's next man up mentality. It's competitive excellence. I'm so proud of those guys for how they stepped up, and I think they did a heck of a job today.
Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Will, it with the exception of those two dead ends in the red zone, you know, in the first half, do you feel it's almost like as close as y'all have come to a full game? I mean, against decent competition this season. I'm talking about offense, defense, special teams. What's your take on that?
Yeah, you know, I think the defense played a heck of a game. For me, offensively, you know, having 2 stall outs in the red zone, 2 turnovers in the red zone, that can't happen. You know, the score really should have been 10 points more. And that's how I look at it. Cause I'm never going to come out of a game like fully satisfied. That's just not who I am. Like, I just don't operate that way. But I'm proud of this team, man. Like, we put together a really good performance on all 3 phases. I think the defense did a heck of a job. After that first drive, I don't think they barely moved the ball, 20 yards. Like, they couldn't do anything. And, the special teams making the 2 plays that they did changes the game, man. And offensively, I think we did what we had to do. Obviously got to go watch the film, clean some things up. But no, I'm proud of this team, man. And we're picking up momentum at the right time.
Rob Aller, over to the left, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, it seemed like the most complete game. Is the way you played today, not you, but the team, with attitude, with execution, is that good enough to win next week and to win it all?
I don't want to say yes or no on that because we're going to need to turn it up. And I still don't think you've seen our best. That's the mindset that this team has. And, when you go into that locker room and you look in the eyes of every single guy, you see it, man. You see that edge. And I've never been on a team that, the last time I saw this edge in people's eyes was when we won the Big 12. Like that I see that, man. I see that. And I know that we have more in the tank and we're fired up. We're going to enjoy this one, but we're fired up, man. We got 2 big weeks coming up here. Go take care of business next week. The week after that, like, we're not worried about that, man. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we got to go out there. And this week's the biggest game of the year. Beat the team up north, man. That's what we say from the moment I got here. I don't wear blue. Just beat the team up north.
Over here to the right, Noah Weiskopf, the Lantern.
Well, Caleb was 9 years old the last time an Ohio State player returned a punt for a touchdown. How big of an impact just to see overall?
He's an unbelievable player, man. I said it earlier. He's one of the best football players I've been around ever. Like, all around football players. Like, I mean, he's special, man. He's a difference maker. He's smart. He's instinctual. He's great with the ball in his hand. You could probably put him at running back, and I think he'd do pretty damn well too. He's just a hell of a football player, and I can't emphasize how happy I am that he's on my team.
We got just time for a couple more. Cameron Teague Robinson, The Athletic.
Will, what'd you see on that 3rd and 35? It seemed like the pocket collapsed and you had to kind of make a play. Just what did you see from that? And then also the 4th and 10 or 4th and 11.
The 3rd and 35, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, I don't have many answers for that. Like, you just kind of have to make a play. And Carnell did a great job on the scramble drill, restarting. We had a concept that we, is like our 3rd and long concept. And, but 35 yards is damn hard to get. But, the fact that we were able to get 25, put us in a situation to go for it on 4th down and then get that 4th down, that was huge, man. That, like, I think that really set the tone for the game and said, like, oh, okay, we're here to play, and I don't really have any answers on how that happened. It's just players making plays and guys getting open for me down the field. And, shout out to Carnell for that. I mean, he did a heck of a job on that drive.
Over here to the right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Well, obviously, Michigan's had a tough year for them. I think I know the answer to this, but their record means nothing, right? I mean, how irrelevant is the record when it comes to this rivalry in your guys' eyes?
Absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing. This game is as big as they come, man. It's the Michigan-Ohio State game. You know, I'm sorry I just said that, but it's a team up north Ohio State game. Like it's everything. It doesn't matter what their record is. I couldn't care less. It means everything. And I'm just so excited to go out there and to do this for my brothers, for Coach Day, for everyone out there in Buckeye Nation that's been hurting. I can't wait, man.
And final question, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Well, on that final drive there, just kind of what drove you guys to want to kind of put an exclamation point about it, and what was going through your mind when Trey slid down at the 1?
Hey, I said you're a better man than me, dude. I don't know if I would have got that far down the field. I don't know if I would have slid down at the 1, but hey, man, he's being a smart football player, and you know, we wanted to put an exclamation point on that thing, and you know, kind of remind him, you know, what the Buckeyes are about, man, and you know, you get what you accept, or you accept what you ask for, and you know, I think, you know, I got a ton of respect for those guys. Like that was not in any way disrespectful. Like we were just trying to put an exclamation point on the game, and you know, it was just, we're on the 1 yard line. Let's go score. You know.
Will, congratulations on the win. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Go Bucks.
And folks, that was.
All right, Will Howard, very passionate there. Devin, love to see it, right?
Yeah, you know, that's the, you know, face of the franchise, if you will. Handles himself very well. You know, we talked about the composure, handling up and downs. You see a guy that, you know, gives all the credit to everybody else, you know, takes a lot of responsibility for when things go wrong on the offense. And again, you know, what I came away with was he does not present himself as a guy this is his first and only season playing for Ohio State. He seems to have really embraced the traditions. Obviously, you heard him talk about it today and how important the game is. And it seemed to really come from the heart and not just telling people what they wanted to hear because he's supposed to be the quarterback of Ohio State. I think you see it reflect most importantly on the field and how the team, you know, obviously plays on the field well together, you know, following him as a quarterback. So again, that's something very encouraging to see from your quarterback.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It does. I was thinking the same thing listening to him. Like, man, has he really only been here like 10 months or whatever it's been, like 10 months? He's really only been here that long. It just feels like, you know, he's really kind of dove head first into the culture, into the program, just into what the school and the program are all about. And that's always the challenge with the transfer portal is, like I've kind of said over the years, is like you can't just hire 20 new mercenaries every year. You really have to be precise with it. You got to have like 3 or 4 areas where it's like, okay, we need to get this, like these 3 things, be very, you know, precision based with it and make sure that those guys are going to fit into what you're doing. And that's obviously I think they've really hit the jackpot with this portal class. They got great players in the portal, but they got people who fit within the program and that are, you know, good representatives of the program, good ambassadors of the program. So I think if you could write up how to transfer portal, this is how you portal. Like this is how you transfer portal. This transfer class has been huge for them, and you know, we'll see just how big next Saturday at noon, because that'll be right or wrong will be how everyone remembers this team. Probably right. I mean, look, this is why college football exists, is for games like they're about to play next Saturday. So it'll be interesting to obviously see how all the new guys quickly adjust to what that's going to be about. And you know, we'll be there to cover that all as well. So Howard, again, very excited about next week. I think, again, the sense of pride, right? Just from what they've overcome on the offensive line this year. I think you can feel that as well.
Yeah, there you see your stat line there. Only 4 incompletions, and you know, the 1 interception he had today. You know, he hit the receiver in the hands. So really was even a more better performance than that. And even if you want to nitpick and pick it out, one could argue the Jeremiah Smith, pass was the attempted touchdown pass there was Smith was going to catch it or nobody. So again, it went down as an incompletion. But again, in terms of where you want the ball to go, couldn't have been a better thrown ball. So again, you saw him run a little bit today too. He made a big play with his legs. Indiana had some pressure that almost hit. He was able to escape the pocket, move the chains with a first down. Saw a called run again a couple times today. Goal line using his legs, and again they're putting the game away with that. Like they said, the exclamation point there, the quarterback sneak at the end. So again, not just the leadership, obviously leadership and how he handles himself there publicly as well, and play on the field speaks for itself. And you heard him say it, just keep moving things along. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it wasn't just about him putting up stats. It's about just keeping things on schedule, I think is how he worded it. When he's having a good day, that's his focus. Is just, hey, let's just stay on schedule, keep moving the ball, and go out and execute.
The Curtis Rourke stat there was kind of jarring. 8 for 18, 68 yards. Like, I know people are going nuts about the PI calls, especially like I know Davis Igbinosun is someone that I know Ohio State fans are kind of polarized on just because of the penalties. But quite frankly, if you had told me they're going to get a few pass interference calls against them, but they're also going to hold Rourke to 8 of 18 for 68 yards, I'll take the pass interference. I'll take a few pass interference calls. I mean, that's a pretty dominant performance. And look, some of this is the defensive line. Like the defensive line and the front seven got so much pressure today that was as much of it as anything the secondary was doing. But like they really shut down an Indiana passing game that can score in bunches, can make big plays. They're aggressive. They take a lot of shots down the field, and they bottled those guys up. And again, 151 total yards is just such a tremendous defensive performance. It's just not much else to say. Again, as Will Howard pointed out, a couple of those, you don't miss those red zone opportunities, which is something they really haven't done all year. This is kind of the first game they've really not cashed in on the red zone. The score's even more lopsided. So I can't, yes, there will be things we can nitpick. Yes, you don't love the penalties, but again, when you're shutting down a passing attack like this to that level, I think you can live with a few things. Maybe that's just me though.
No, you heard Coach Day say it, and you don't necessarily want to, you still can't. How can I word this? You like the aggressiveness, but you still got to be smart about it and understand when you can be aggressive and when you got to realize. Speaking a little bit here in terms of fundamentals and technique here, cornerback play in particular, since that's what we're discussing. But you got to realize at some point when you've just got to get your hands off. You got to realize when you just need to worry about staying in phase when you're playing man coverage and not necessarily about just mugging the guy so they can't get off the line of scrimmage. And that just comes with playing the position and having a feel for the position. Again, you like the aggressiveness, but you got to realize at what point it's just more about staying in phase and playing your position than it is against playing bully ball at the corner spot. So, but again, to the bigger discussion there, 151 yards allowed, just an incredible performance defensively. Like they talked about it throughout the show. Indiana's been beating everybody by 30 all season long. And I've said it on here before. Like if you're a good ball team. Yes, it seemed like national media was picking on Indiana because they had, quote unquote, hadn't played anybody or whatever you say, but they were doing what they were supposed to do against teams they were better than. That's winning by 30. And, see Ohio State go out there and, take a shot in that first series, adjust. This game was, obviously more with the pressures and attacking the quarterback. It shut them down. I mean, absolutely shut them down. 150 yards this day and age college football. I mean, that's just an incredible performance that just doesn't happen no matter how good your defense is. It's the way that the game's played. Teams give up 300 yards of offense. Well, they used to give up 300 yards of offense about every game. Now with the new clock rules and you only get 4 possessions a game, now, the yardage is coming back down. But that's a whole nother conversation. But again, all types of credit to the defense today for performance, pressure, coverage. Indiana did get some runs. Coach Signet from Indiana said it. We'd have a couple runs here and there, but we dropped back past the ball. And then next thing you know, it's third and forever. We couldn't protect. Pressure was hitting home.
And look, I mean, they're going to be big favorites next week. I think I saw an early line of 23.5, which I just even as down as Michigan is this year, that's kind of hard to believe. But throwing that away and just understanding the nature of the rivalry, understanding that it's always going to be a physical, competitive game, it feels like they're peaking at the right time. Like there's teams that in the past I've covered here at Ohio State where it felt like they kind of peaked in the middle of October and then they just kind of tried to hang on the rest of the year. This team feels like they're trending upward going into this game. Do you think that's fair to say?
Well, it's not just your observation. That's what you heard Will Howard say in his post-game press conference there. It seemed like they got more, the way he worded it was something to the effect of we have more to give, or we got more in the tank, or we haven't played our best game yet as a team. So it seems like not just your observation, but it seems like that's what the team feels as well, as they still have not played their best ball game yet. Going into a ball game that's next week, that's a great position to be in instead of, hey, let's, like you were saying, let's just hang on and see if we can do what we've been doing. You want to see your team get better and to take it a step further, if you will, if you're going to make a playoff run. And, this team has been talking about making a playoff run. If you get in, you got to keep getting better and better. You can't stay the same. You either get worse or you get better. And we want to see them keep building on what they've been doing week in, week out.
All right. Well, it looks like the Buckeye Weekly crew is ready. Tom, Tony, Kevin, interesting game today. Didn't get the fireworks maybe we thought from Signetti afterwards. That was that, ladies and gentlemen, is why they give the coaches 15 or 20 minutes to cool off after a football game. But take it away, guys.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Devin, for covering first half. We will take the second half here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom or Tom. Welcome to Michigan Week.
You beat me to it. I was about to say, Tony, you know what week it is? It is the greatest week of the year. It is Michigan Week in Columbus, Ohio. Normally, when it's Michigan Week, it's like, okay, we have to spend 4 minutes, at least 4 minutes, talking about the game that just ended. Because usually it's, they beat a 5-7 Maryland team. They beat a 3-8 Indiana team. Okay, we have to talk about the Indiana game for at least 7 minutes.
Okay.
At least. Probably more than that.
Start the clock. No, 38-15 Ohio State. You guys saw Ryan Day there at the end of talking about the final touchdown and just wanting to put an exclamation point on it when Travion slid down and then there was a timeout or something. And then they went and did it. I turned to Dom Tiberi. I'm like, well, Ryan Day always talks about you leave no doubt. And then I guess that's exactly what Day said in the post-game interview, like on the sideline with Fox. Like, yeah, we want to leave no doubt. And one way to do that is punch it in there at the end. I'm sure, Travion slides down and Ryan Day's like, no,
Yeah,
we're not stopping here. We want more. And Kurt Signetti had something to say about that as well.
Yeah, I went up there thinking, oh boy, where is this going to go? And it was a fascinating press conference. And I would encourage you after we're done to go watch the whole thing because he said a bunch of complimentary things. He said a bunch of really passive aggressive things. It was a fascinating press conference, but his full quote on the final touchdown was, quote, he's got to do what he's got to do for his team. Quote, period, close quote, end of answer.
Yeah, it's true though. In this era of the CFP, you've got to make every mark that you can. And Ohio State certainly did that one. 38-15, as I said. The first quarter, slow. Everything else, they scored twice in each quarter after that. And that was even at halftime, even when it was like 7-7, you felt like if Ohio State would just finish, then this could go this way in the second half. Because let's start with the defense, Tom, because this was really impressive. Now, you look at the running game, and Tyson Lawton and Justice Ellison combined for like 140 yards rushing.
Yeah, on 2 drives.
Yeah. Well, and then I don't know how much of that is in the second half at the end, but they had 70 yards of total offense in the first drive, and then they finished with 81 yards total offense the rest of the game. Not unlike Northwestern last week, who had 151 yards, which is exactly what Indiana finished with in the game. Northwestern last week had 151 yards on the first 2 drives and then 100 yards the rest of the game. After this first drive, they only had 81 yards after that, and they got after Curtis Work so badly that you'd have thought it was Curtis Work out there at an Indiana basketball game saying Ohio State sucks.
Yeah, that was. I'm sure it was nothing personal against Curtis Rourke, but he was the poor sap who kept getting handed the football by the center, so it became his problem. That was as dominant a day from the Ohio State defense against a competent team. This is a good team, Indiana. What you saw is Ohio State just defenestrating a good team. This was not Western Michigan getting shut out. This was, Indiana has run it up on just about everyone all season. And I'm just going to read their yardage per drive. 70, 8, -7, -4, -2, 2, 8, 32, -11, 75, 3. That is thorough.
Yeah. No, it's thorough. It's emphatic. And you look at this, and so Curtis Rourke was 8 of 18 passing for 68 yards. They ran the ball 41 times. They averaged 2 yards a carry, but it's like their running backs are averaging almost 4 yards a carry. But that's, again, I think a lot of that was on that last drive and the first drive.
Yeah.
Other than that, they were completely shut down. And you're like, why are you running the ball so much when that's not effective? But you threw the ball 18 times for 68 yards, so that wasn't effective either because the pass rush, it was what we saw this entire game against Indiana's passing game was what we saw in the second half against Michigan against Indiana when they just got after Curtis Rourke. He threw for almost 200 yards in the first half of that game and then maybe like 16 or 20 in the second half. They were all over him in this one. Cody Simon had 2.5 sacks on his blitzes. JT Tuimoloau came around a couple times. Jack Sawyer, I think, had a sack and a half. He had no time in this one. And out of all of the things that Ohio State fans saw in this one, you might want to feel best about the way the pass rush got after the quarterback. Now, Indiana's tackles aren't great. Michigan's tackles aren't great. So you might see some similar things next week.
Yeah, and we're not through our 7 minutes. You got to hold your water there.
I just don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about that game this week.
I'm going to do a little math on the fly here, but 18 dropbacks for Curtis Rourke that he threw the ball. He had 7 rushes. One of them was that run on third down on the slide, so that was 8 yards. So we're going to 6 where he was sacked, presumably, or flushed out of the pocket. So that's 24 plays where he either threw it or got sacked or whatever. He had 68 yards passing and negative 41 yards rushing on those plays. So that would make it 24 plays for 27 yards. So anyway, in case you're wondering, Tony, that's why they ran the ball. Kurt Signet said anytime they, as soon as they dropped back to pass, it was like, well, something bad's about to happen, and it did.
Yeah, and at that point, you're basically like, well, we need turnovers. We need something bad to happen for Ohio State.
We need another block in the back call.
Right. Yes. They just needed some help, and there was no help to be gotten because what they had on offense was not enough. And again, they had even with Justice Ellis and the running back, 62 yards rushing, but along of just 11 yards. Buckeyes tackled well in this one. There wasn't a lot of room. They started making some hay outside a couple of times, but nothing was sustained. And after that first drive, which, it's almost comical at this point where Ohio State is so timid offensively on their first drive and you're left with like a 3rd and 5. And this week, we'll get to the offense in a bit, but it's just the offense starts slow. The defense gives up their 1 or 2 drives, and then it's like, okay, all right, that's enough. Popeye gets the spinach, and then it's all over.
Yeah, that first drive. The first drive on offense for Ohio State, the first time I thought, that's a choice, was Emeka Egbuka on 3rd down running his route short of the sticks.
Well short
of the sticks. I can't believe the play was designed to do that. You've got to, where the sticks are, you got to get to the sticks. And that ended up with a 3rd and 2 on that drive. So, there we go. So now we've talked about the offense. So now let's get back to talk about the defense. It is fascinating to me, Tony. Absolutely fascinating. How much better the Ohio State defense is right as all the X's and O's guys are going, boy, Jim Knowles is doing a lot more of the stuff that he was doing at Oklahoma State. I'm starting to think, Tony, that Jim Knowles may not have been the issue all along. And in the words of Cousin Eddie, might be time to do some kissing for some Ohio State fans who've had some negative things to say about Jim Knowles, because, boy, Jim Knowles running the Jim Knowles defense seems like it's working pretty well.
Yeah, what I'll say is, well, let's see it in the playoffs. That's the answer there.
Sure. Well, that's the answer you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this was Indiana. The offense.
Tony, no one's ever wrong. That's the important thing.
The Michigan offense, not the kind that can threaten you either. The Oregon offense, hey, prove it there. But then it's like, well, yeah, but you already played them once. You knew what was coming.
Right. That doesn't count.
Try it a third time. No, but I think when you watch the secondary, let's talk about the secondary. And let's talk about Davis Igbinosun, who didn't have any pass interference penalties, maybe outside of the first quarter when he had a couple. Maybe there was another one.
There was another one at the end. He hit the hat trick in the fourth quarter.
It's bad that his first action is basically just to grab, and they're watching him now. So like you can't do that. And they finally started getting Jermaine Matthews in there after the first quarter when all of that drive was done. But they need to go back to the mitts and just reiterate, like they are watching you. So if you're going to do something, you may get away with it once. You're not going to get away with it twice. You're certainly not going to get away with it a third time because they're throwing it. And other guys are getting away with stuff. You're not gonna.
Right. Yeah. Everyone in the Big Ten knows, hey, this is the guy that does the pass interference. And at this point, just about every crew in the Big Ten has probably called him for pass interference. I was going to look at the NCAA rulebook and just Control F boxing gloves to see if that was an option that you could wear those on the field during a game. I'm assuming it's not in there, but you never know. It's just at this point, you have to trust yourself. You have to just trust yourself to be in coverage and not grab. And if you can't trust yourself to not grab, and the officiating crews are all looking for it, with you in particular, you're not going to get the benefit of that. There was plenty of other contact in passing situations where it was like, yeah, they could have called that, but you're not going to call that all the time. You're always going to call it with him because they're always looking for it with him at this point. So you've either got to trust yourself or you got to play Jermaine Matthews more, and I don't think there's a third option.
Yeah, no, there isn't. And the pass interference is real quick with the Ohio State offense. Jelani Thurman was hit right before the ball got to him. That led to the interception.
Oh, on the interception, yeah.
Bennett Christian was tackled on the play before the Emeka Ibuka touchdown, which is one of the most blatant calls you'll ever see, unless you don't see it, which apparently they didn't. But they're not going to miss. They're going to keep their eye on Davis Igbinosun because they know, like, hey, this usually leads to something, especially for the refs. Like, I want to be seen, so I'm going to watch him, and then boom, I've been working up the shoulder. I'm ready to go. But other than that, I think they're very, very solid. The long play of the day, the long pass play of the day, 19 yards. I don't remember much of anything other than the third and longs on the first drive. That's the only passing that they really did. And then Ohio State was like, you know what, let's change some things up. Let's throw some twists. Let's do some blitzing. Because that was the end of the time that Curtis Work had to throw, was after that first drive. And if we do some math on the fly here, I bet the bulk of his yardage came on that first drive.
It was. He had a 13-yard pass on 3rd and 9. He had a pass interference on that one. He had a 19-yard pass on the first drive, so that's 32 yards right there.
Good.
And 32 yards on that. Everything else was a run. So 32 yards passing. The two long passing plays of the day, I believe, because he had the long reception for Surratt was 19 yards. That was on that drive. The only reception for Price was 13 yards. That was on that drive. Other than that, Surratt had 2 catches for 21 yards. Tyson Lawton had 2 catches for 9 yards. Keyshawn Williams had 2 catches for 6 yards. -30
so
as they say.
How many yards did he have in that first drive? Because the second drive,
20. He had 32 on the first drive.
Because on the second drive he had 18 yards. So 60 of his 68 came on the first 2 drives.
50, Tony.
You said 32?
32 plus 18.
Did I say 18?
You sure did.
All right. I wasn't listening.
Anyway, there's a reason Tony asked me to do the math on this show.
We did it together.
Don't clip that. All right, so let's talk about literally anything else. I mean, can we talk for a moment? Do we have a super chat? Let's hit the super chat real quick.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Google
Mike
it.
Ferguson now.
Thank you, Mike Ferguson. Super chat. No. Let's explore this. Let's really explore the room. Tom Moore is a terrible person. Google it. Well, boy, I wanted to get home tonight, but
Mike Farino says props to Fry. Defensive line was fine today against a team that loves to blitz and stunt. That'd be offensive line was fine today against a team that loves to blitz and stunt. We're not dominant, but it was good enough by any measure. There were times when they were dominant because there was a point in that opening drive. I usually don't have a great sense for how the running game's going, other than like, well, it's been a while since he started running and they haven't tackled him yet. There was a play or two on that opening drive where it didn't feel like, it was kind of like Quinshon Judkins didn't ever like come out of the pile. Like you just kind of, he stayed behind. It was like, oh, he probably got stopped for a yard or two. It was like, oh, and it's 2nd and 3. Yep. Like, oh, he got 7 yards. The offensive line must be getting some push. And, this is an offensive line where Fryer and Shabola and Donovan Jackson, it feels like you kind of know what you're getting with those guys. Hinsman and Sierveld are both guys that they've talked about how they're big and strong. You can really get a push. You're probably more worried about pass pro than anything, but they were pretty solid in pass pro for the most part today. I can remember Howard got sacked maybe once. There was the grounding. The grounding. And there was another time he was kind of running for his life at one point. But really, for Indiana leads the Big Ten in sacks and did not no more. So yeah, that was what you were looking for out of the Ohio State offense. It does not need to be the greatest offensive line in the history of college football. Yep. It needs to be good. Yep. And against a team that has shown they can be deceptive, they can be creative, they did not get beat. They didn't get toasted. That's a heck of a day.
Yeah. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. That game was what the Tyson versus Paul fight should have been. The newly successful being beat down by the longtime great, in his opinion, of course.
It did feel a little like the Tyson-Paul fight where it felt at one point in the fourth quarter like, well, it seems like the teams have come to an arrangement about how this is going to go.
And then Ryan Day is like, yeah, I'll take one more touchdown. Like, oh. Yeah, very, very orchestrated towards that part where Kurt Signetti's like, you know what? Let's just not make this 45-7 or something like that because that could cost them. Now, I think they're in with the Ole Miss loss.
Yeah.
As long as they don't lose to Purdue.
Well, and Georgia looked like cheeks, apparently. I mean, Georgia, can we just frame this? Georgia fans, who are the biggest crybabies in the entire world. And then Georgia had given up as many points to UMass halfway through the third quarter as Indiana had given up to Ohio State. UMass, which just fired its coach this week because they're so bad, even by UMass standards. At home, in Athens.
Boy, there's a lot going on.
It might be time for Georgia fans to go get the shine box and sit in the corner for a while. No driving, just sit in the corner and just think about what your team just did.
Tom, I'm going to give you some scores. 17-0 Kansas over Colorado. 14-0 Arizona State over BYU. Arizona State's going to go to the playoffs, by the way, just so you know. Man. Minnesota 10-7 over Penn State right now. Kentucky and Texas tied 7-7.
Oh boy, Greg Sankey's going to be tweeting about strength of schedule so many times.
Georgia scores 14 points in the fourth quarter to make this
good,
respectable.
Good for them. Good for them.
Oh, sorry. I only have the top 25 games. I'll have to open this up to the entire FBS.
Sir Eric M says it would be nice for my sense of closure to finally get today's Hang 100 game.
Well, I don't know that it'll be that, but because the plays, can we talk about the lack of plays again, even though neither team is really just running the clock down. Ohio State 55 plays, Indiana I think 59. Like there's no ability to have 75 plays in the game anymore, I don't think, unless you're going constant tempo. But the days of like consistent 500-yard total offense games, I think is gone, certainly for Ohio State, unless that's the kind of style you want to play. But that's not the offense played pretty well today. They had 316 yards of total offense. That's like a season low in past years.
Well, and Signetti was talking about that. He's like, well, held them to three. Maybe I think it was Signet. I think he mentioned, but also there were some Indiana folks around there talking about, well, they held them to, Oh, I think he did. I think he talked about, until that long Travion Henderson run at the end, held Ohio State under 200 or 300 yards rushing or 300 yards of offense, which is good. But it's also 5.7 yards per play, which is like, that's not a dominant game, but that's a game that if I told you before the game Ohio State's going to have 5.7 yards per play, you're saying, they're going to score 30 points, and that's probably enough to win, and it was. But it's just so few plays, 26 passes, 29 runs. It's amazing. That's what, 55 plays? It's like a drive and a half has just been like raptured into TV commercial land.
I mean, it's bizarre. You're just looking, they had 57 plays last week. Good luck putting up big numbers. And, even like Jeremiah Smith today, just 3 catches and 34 yards. Like, it's going to be difficult for anybody to just post yards like over and over again, because there just aren't enough plays. And especially if we can switch over to the offense real quick, if you don't throw it to him when he's in one-on-one coverage with no safety help, like down in the red zone, like they threw it to him once. I don't.
Yeah. Well, he had one where 2 guys were covering him, and it was like, well, if it's 2-on-1, he's still open because that was one that he caught down the sideline. The Travion Henderson touchdown run right before halftime, the one that made it 14-7 Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith's like lined up directly in line with me, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to get a fade route. And then Indiana brings his safety over. And so then, they talk about the quarterback being a +1 on the run game. Jeremiah Smith's a +1 on the run game because you take another guy out of the box.
Did Will may have checked to the run on that one. So, because, maybe the coverage was over there, but that was a really good job by Carson Hinsman and Austin Searveld pushing that left side of the line. It's always interesting when the offense goes behind new guys to like give you start seeing some confidence, and you're like, okay, let's go with it.
Yeah.
And it works, and it just builds the confidence even more. You guys saw Will Howard, and you're talking about how he told the offensive line, I am not worried about you guys at all. I feel bad for Seth, but I'm not worried about us. And they've got confidence in everybody. And you saw that in this one all day long.
Well, and you saw, we talked all week about the fact that Ryan Day was not, I don't think we heard did we hear the phrase talent equated this week? I don't know that we did.
No.
I don't think that we did. And that's a phrase that he uses a lot when, you'll hear it a lot during.
When he thinks there's talent equated.
When he thinks there's talent equated. And that struck me just in the middle of the game. I was kind of like, I didn't think about that, but I don't think we heard that all week. And just the way he was acting all week. It wasn't that he was taking the game lightly. It was just kind of, you can tell when he's nervous. You can tell when he has real serious concerns. He did not have real serious concerns this week.
Yeah, he was very confident all week. And then the emphatic nature of this game and putting, as he said, the exclamation point on it, I think you see the building going on and the way they're playing and the confidence that is there. Super chat from Girthy from Berthy. I was going to get through it if you didn't laugh.
Yeah, sure, it's my fault.
IGB should change his number weekly because it's too easy to spot number 1. That's an interesting idea.
It looks like an eye for interference. So,
although if you change your number, like I'm 43 now, it's like that's a terrible number for a quarterback. They know you can't defend that way.
Yeah.
So they're going to be really watching you there.
Mike Ferguson says bold prediction: Tom wears blue in the Woody this week.
Oh, that's a 3-pointer because I don't see that happening for anybody.
See, here's the thing. You're assuming that this is something that I'm doing intentionally, and it's not just like, well, here's the thing that's hanging in the front of my closet. I have no idea what's going to be hanging in the front of my closet this week.
It's closet roulette.
I will probably do laundry tomorrow, and we'll just see, and I will give it zero thought. And
well, at least
unless you want to give me 3 bold prediction points. I mean, for the second week in a row, for me to get my 3-point.
Nobody cares about the bold prediction show, Tom. It's not even why we're here.
Isn't it though?
It's not.
No.
It's definitely. Well, I mean, maybe I won. I didn't look, but usually when somebody hits a 3, it's kind of over.
Can we talk for a moment about the Ohio State special teams?
Yep, let's do it.
I think the show a few weeks ago where we talked about they never do anything. It's just like the meme of the guy like poking this thing with a stick. Do something. That's been the Ohio State special teams for years. And they had the punt return for the touchdown, which is obviously kind of the big exclamation point play. But also they ran somehow the opposing punter biffs the snap for the second week in a row.
They should call that more often.
That's what I said. Why have they been sitting
Trouble
on
with
the
the snap next
Why
week.
have they been? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and it wasn't pouring down rain or anything, but it was enough rain that it was like it might have made the ball a little bit slippery. And it was I don't think that was a great snap. That was a second week in a row where it was not a great snap.
Well, I think the snap was okay. I think he was looking at the rush because
okay.
they were kind of loading up, I think, and
and Caden Curry got that. Caden Curry did not get the punter down last week. Caden Curry got the punter down this week. Caden Curry is an enthusiastic young man when he makes a play on the field.
Well, hey, that's his home state, Hoosiers. They didn't offer him. I'm just kidding. They offered him.
The Tom Allen, Indiana. Yeah.
So I don't know if you were in here yet, but Will Howard called the Caleb Downs punt return for a touchdown. He said, well, to be fair, he said 2's going to take it 74 yards. He was off by 5. So I don't know if we want to give him credit for that. He did not overbid. So I guess it would still count unless somebody else said, I think he's going to go 77.
Unless he returned it from the 17-yard line. I think that counts.
So, and you guys saw Ryan Day talking about how they get so many short punts, and this was another short punt. He's like, dang it. And then it takes the perfect bounce right to Caleb Downs, makes the first guy miss with a spin move, gets up the sideline. CJ Hicks plants a dude on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time you're just like, well, where are the flags? Let's see all of the flags. And no, there's surprisingly no flags on a long return.
Yeah.
First punt return in 10 years, Tom.
Almost to the day.
Almost to the day.
Yeah.
To the same team.
Yes.
Almost to the day.
The week before Michigan.
Yep.
Once
so
again.
it was November 22nd, 2014.
Wow. One day off.
Yeah,
wow.
legitimately.
That is crazy. 10 years in one day. So November 24th, 2034. Bold prediction.
Who will it be? I say it will be Ted Ginn Jr. Jr.
The kids can call you Teacher Jew. Yeah. Well, yes.
Hey,
Other folks pointed that out as well. That yes, that was a year that things worked out okay for Ohio State. I don't want to just do. Yeah. Here's one from Bill Evans. Indiana had given up 11 sacks in 10 games, then 5 today. That was. We have not talked about Cody Simon. Like we kind of run through the defense. We need to talk about Cody Simon. That was the Cody Simon game for a long stretch. Cody Simon and Sonny Styles, 18 tackles between them. 18 tackles. Cody Simon, 10 tackles, 4 solo, 2.5 sacks, a forced fumble.
Mm-hmm.
That was a blindside hit. And he got there fast. Both of those sacks were Curtis Work takes the snap and there's just a blur. And it was like, oh, this is going to go, it's like the record scratch and then the video freezes. And it's like, oh, you're probably wondering how I got myself in this situation. And both of those.
I was thinking that exact same thing on one of the Jack Sawyer pictures that you took, I think. But the Cody Simon, he blitzed from the edge. I don't recall him doing much of that. I think normally he's coming from like the A gap or so. That one, the one where he forced the fumble, you're watching it, it's like, boy, I can't believe Curtis Rourke didn't fumble the ball because he fumbled it like right in line with, I couldn't see the fumble, and like Ty Hamilton came up with it. And like, I can't believe, like me and Marcus Hartman, I can't believe he didn't fumble that. And then you see the ref go like this. I'm like,
yeah,
I guess he did. And then you see the replay, and he knocked it out, and then he sacked him. Like he got it with his left hand, and then took him down with his right arm, and just really, really good all day long for him. He had some nice tackles that were kind of downfield that were touchdown savers, or at least one where there was maybe like an 8-yard gain, but if he didn't get there, then it could have gone the distance. And really, that's the Cody Simon game. If you're going to get those kinds of games out of your 2 linebackers, and like Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, 5 tackles, 4 tackles. They didn't need to have as many tackles because those 2 guys were cleaning it up so well.
Yeah, and you look at the second quarter for Indiana. They had 18 plays from scrimmage. No cheating.
Okay.
18 plays from scrimmage for Indiana. How many yards did they have?
I will say they had some negative drives in there and not a long drive. So I'll say negative 11. No, wait. There was one point from after that first drive, for the second half, they had negative 17 yards.
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't negative 17.
So negative 11.
Mr. Blutarski, 0.0.
Because they had 70 on the first drive. They finished I think the half was 53 yards of total offense.
Yeah, and Ohio State was not dominant in that second quarter. They had 54 yards of total offense, 3.9 yards per play, but that was good for 2 touchdowns. And part of that was the special teams, the bad snap, and setting them up with a short field. The defense set up Ohio State up with a short field at one point that then immediately led to a turnover. That was the Jelani Thurman, the kind of tipped pass play. But they started. They started a drive. They started consecutive drives at the Indiana 44. That was a touchdown. Indiana 18. That was an interception. And Indiana 7. So you start 3 straight drives in Indiana territory, including 2 inside the red zone. That's pretty, that is setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, that's another reason Ryan Day was talking about how there aren't a ton of yards because they had some short fields. So good luck putting up a bunch of yards when you've only got 30 yards to go.
Yeah, I was looking to see if they have available yards on the stat thing, and they don't. But the drive success rate, 78%. That is probably a winning number. Here's Ohio State's drives: ends in a punt, end in downs. Not the way that the later one ends in downs. Touchdown, interception, touchdown, punt, field goal, touchdown. So 4 touchdowns and a field goal in the last 7 drives. That's the last 3 quarters of the game. So that's against a team that has been as good as Indiana. That I think is a meaningful performance.
All right, we get some questions.
Let's. Okay. Yeah. Timothy Mason says, I think on the 3rd sack, Rourke looked up and saw the block coming free and just assumed the fetal position as if to say, don't hurt me.
Yeah, that's one of those blow the whistle.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. Super chat from Mike Farino. Yeah, I got it. You got it now. Okay. Mike Farino says, I'm happy they got Jelani a touchdown. I'm sure that was a confidence booster after being partially slash significantly the cause of the INT. You said that there was probably some contact before that?
It was a little early, but you can't get all of them correct. And so, this one coming out of the wing T there with the play action and rewarding him. It was a nice throw. Will Howard had some nice throws into the end zone. That touchdown throw to Emeka Egbuka just over, I think, a linebacker's fingers. Like that was, I tweeted out that was Stroudian, just like the touch there. C.J. Stroud.
I'm familiar with C.J. Stroud and his
former quarterback. Not the one that was on game day today. That was Justin Fields. He was one year earlier.
Minnesota 10, Penn State 10, 3 minutes to go till halftime.
That feels like a really, really terrible game to watch. Watch that one with 5 minutes, 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Do not watch it just yet. Yeah,
James Franklin, buddy, I would advise you to win that football game. I don't.
Can you imagine the lack of ticket sales if they have to go to a bowl game that isn't a playoff game? And it's because I don't think they're in if they lose to Minnesota. That's
I think that
the SEC is also losing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a lot of teams not doing great right now.
I assume Tennessee ends with Vanderbilt, and I'm not above Vanderbilt beating Tennessee and giving them a 3rd loss.
No, Tennessee bravely took on UTEP today and won 56-0.
Good for them.
This is the week, as the banner says, to sign up for Buckeye Huddle. If you've been holding out, so much coming up, including the Michigan game, Big Ten championship game, probably, if they handle their business next week. Ohio State now officially controls its destiny. No question, no anything. If they beat Michigan, they're going to Indianapolis in 2 weeks. National Signing Day as well. I don't know if people know that. National Signing Day, December 4th. Do people realize that? I don't know that people realize that because we haven't talked about it a ton because it used to be December 20th or something like that. They have moved it up this year, so that's coming pretty quick. David Sanders was here today, 5-star offensive tackle, currently committed to Tennessee. Saw a very good game, saw an offensive line have a very good game. Great atmosphere. And just the fact that he's here on what is Tennessee's last home game weekend, you kind of wonder, boy, would that be a big addition to this class.
You're not coming here because you're not interested. There's So it was certainly big news when it was like, the news flew through the sphere here. And then also Ohio State got a commitment from 2027 wide receiver Jameer Brown, who is
big time,
really
big
really
time.
good.
Yeah, he's someone we saw at camp last June, and he sometimes there's like, which one is the guy that we're supposed to be? He was just like,
that guy.
I bet it's that guy.
Yeah, and he's not like he was probably like 6 foot 180, 185 when we saw him, but like he is lightning, and he catches things, and he goes up and he plays bigger than he is. So only 2027.
Yeah.
Just
well, and sometimes it's the guys are like Jakeem Stewart is like, you see Jakeem Stewart from across the room, and it's just like, yes, that is a person who is larger than people typically are and moves faster than people typically do at that size. Jameer Brown. Sorry, I've got too many names in my head. Jameer Brown was just very much you see him do stuff, and it's just like, most people can't do that. So yeah, that's a name that I think not a huge surprise that he ended up at Ohio State, but getting an in-state guy for 2027, the fact that they're offering a guy who's at 2027 in-state, that tells you what they think.
Before his freshman year.
Yeah, yep. Mike Farino says on the Ibuka touchdown, Howard also had Henderson leak through the line and no one between him and the end zone.
There was on that first drive that he hit Ibuka for 2 yards on 3rd and 5. He did have Travion Henderson in the flats for what would have been a first down. And again, that throw to Ibuka, which is, I assume, where the play was designed to go. And if you've got a linebacker on him, you're going to do that 10 times out of 9. But overall, 22 of 26 for Will Howard, really checking things down, I think, a lot. And they were calling a lot of short passes. I don't know if it was – I assume it was because of what Indiana was doing. You guys were watching what Devin Radcliffe had to say and what Mark Givler had to say. They were probably talking about that as well. But 26 attempts, 201 yards passing. It's on the lower end for what, especially the 22 completions, kind of on the lower end for what Ohio State normally does. But they were giving them those short yards, those short catches, and Ohio State finally was like, okay, let's just start taking them. And they moved down the field. I don't even know if it may have been their second touchdown or one of their touchdown drives. They never ran the ball. They just threw it. And it's like, you're going to give us the yards, we're going to take them.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where if the opposing team is going to take away, hey, we're not going to let you take a deep shot. Okay, well, then you're just going to go bump, 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 and just be methodical down the field. Because there's a lot of teams where if you take away the deep shot and the ability to hit the one big, the one good throw for the one big play, they can't. I mean, we see this all the time with some of the lesser teams that come into Ohio Stadium. There are teams that can't consistently execute the, hey, 8-yard pass, 10-yard pass, 12-yard pass. Ohio State has been able to pass protect for Will Howard, have Will Howard make consistently good throws. He was, again, what was he, 22 of 26 today? 85% completion.
Started 14 of 14.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Martellian.
I don't want to blaspheme, but that's actually better than Martellian, which I know. Here's Will Howard's stats: 22 of 26, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, 85% completions. I know the thing says Will for Heisman. I think he's just like, he's not the most exciting player on this team. And it's not that he doesn't deserve it to be in the conversation of best player in the nation, because he's the best player for Ohio State. You look at all the other quarterbacks that were in the portal last year, and Cam Ward's probably more exciting, and Cam Ward's much more likely to end up at the Heisman ceremony. Will Howard is exactly what Ohio State needs, because Cam Ward has to go win football games for Miami. Ohio State has the defense, they have the outside, the skill talent that you have to be smart and make good decisions, and that gets it there for you. And compare his numbers there to Curtis Rourke's, and it's like, there's that is what I probably do not need to tell you which team won if you just read that graphic.
But with the Heisman, you need to have Heisman moments. He does not have any of those. Heisman numbers, his numbers are like, a Heisman number is not, I'm third in the nation in pass completion percentage or passer rating. You need yards and you need touchdowns. His touchdowns are way down compared to C.J. Stroud, compared to Justin Fields. Now, he's got like the same kind of interception numbers and completion percentage, but that's dink and dunk stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
anybody could have that.
Yeah.
Anybody could have that, Kevin.
Yeah, but you also see Rourke and Allar in the Heisman, you know, on like when people take the list out to 10, and I think that that's probably creating some of the issue.
Well, I saw a couple of weeks ago where Drew Aller and Will Howard had the same Heisman odds at like 10,000 to 1 or 1,000 to 1. It's like there's no way those two guys should be grouped, and that's just you don't think Will Howard is. These guys are not Heisman candidates. We just would like to take some money on them.
Here's the thing with the Heisman Trophy. Like the Will Howard season has been just real solid. He has just been handling business. He's been very efficient. He's been very effective. He has been checking all the boxes on the spreadsheet all year. The Heisman Trophy is like a monster truck rally. It's like there is no subtlety. You're only going to need the edge of your seat. It's just, oh man, did you see what Gravedigger just did? He threw a 97-yard touchdown off his back foot, and there's not a lot of subtlety. I don't want to say that it's voted on by morons, but also, and also, as Danny Cannell said earlier today, hang on, let me pull this up because I think listen, if I saw this, you need to hear this too. Danny Cannell, resident genius who's still keeping receipts on Florida State, which who's having a great season.
Got to get
Hang on.
another file cabinet.
This is one of these things that I screenshot so to not give him the engagement that he so craves. If you take Ashton Genty off the roster, Boise State is still the same record. Same thing with Travis Hunter. Danny Cannell believes the Heisman Trophy has become anti-quarterback. There it is, the stupidest thing said in human history.
Yeah, I think radio is anti-Taylor Swift also. I mean, that's what you're saying. That's basically,
yeah.
I mean,
It's anti-chicken nugget.
Oh boy, Mike Farino says Minnesota just blocked a punt with 1:10 to go in the second. Ball's at about the 20-yard line. Oh boy, and Minnesota has now scored 17-10. Minnesota.
Colorado's come firing
What
back.
if the 12-team playoff doesn't happen because there aren't 12 teams that are good enough to be in the playoffs? Do you ever think about that, smart guy?
Whoever has the best APR.
Some 5 and 7 teams getting in because Rice. How did Rice get in the playoff? Well, it's an interesting story.
No, it's not. Can't go that far.
No. Ethan Maxfield says Will is a great leader. Will Howard, absolutely. And, you know, I saw him up there wearing the Run the Damn Ball hat on the postgame interview. He was wearing that coming into the stadium as well. I put a picture up on Twitter of him and Seth McLaughlin is on his knee scooter and Will Howard's like right there with him with the, like, those are two guys who probably had never met before January this year. And I know that they were kind of going through the recruiting process at the same time. And they've talked about the fact that they got along really well going through that process. That, you know, those are guys who Ohio State has leaned on a lot this year. And McLaughlin obviously now out for the season, but Will Howard's still playing a very big role.
Well, and I don't know if you got in here to hear him talking about the Michigan game.
No.
Where he's like, definitely I want to win that for me, but more than anything else, you want to win it for. He was naming all of the seniors, like name after name after name. I want to win it for this guy and this guy, and I really want to win it for Coach Day to shut up the haters, and I want to win it for this. It reminded me of like in Hoosiers, where Gene Hackman's like, who do you want to win this for? And it's like, I want to win it for Coach. I want to win it for my dad. I want to win it for whatever. And he was up there like, I want to win it for this guy. I want to win it for this guy. And it's like, we're here. And he's going to have that opportunity.
Well, and Will Howard is someone who grew up in Pennsylvania. So he's someone who's going to be very familiar with the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry in a way that, it's not like that game's a big secret or has been real under the radar the last, 100 years or so. But, he's probably familiar with it in a way that Quinshon Judkins might not be, or Seth McLaughlin might not be. Yeah, obviously, that's something they get schooled up on pretty quickly when they get to Columbus. There is a big wall inside the Woody with nothing but Ohio State, Michigan stuff and a countdown clock on there. Countdown clock now 6 days and some change.
Yeah, boy.
I can't wait till the morning show so I can find out how far away it is.
Will it be 5 days at that point, or is it still
6
just
days?
6? Okay,
6 days.
all right.
Come on.
Well, this might be a long show.
That's true. Seeking Yog says, I really wonder what the defensive adjustments does to LJ. It's obviously he was to hold up in making those changes. Does it change LJ's plans for retirement? If the changes have been made and the changes are successful, and I don't think there's a real strong argument to go back to the previous way.
Right.
So I think like if you're successful in the new thing, why would you be like, nope, and now I'm going back? Like that doesn't. As long as it's working, and again, we said we'll see. Oregon is coming, and then the playoff is coming, and you got some good offenses there. But if it works, then I don't know that there's a big source of stress there.
And if it is working, and if you can't take joy in that, then you've got an issue. So I don't think he's like, it's fine, but I'm not happy about it. Like if it's working and your players are succeeding, and then you shouldn't be upset about that. I do think it's interesting. We did not see. I don't know that we saw the Jack. We didn't see CJ Hicks in this one. So that was one of my questions: was how serious were they about CJ Hicks? One, and so I don't know that we really saw him in this one. So that kind of answered that question a little bit, and they were more comfortable just doing what they've done the last 4 or 5 weeks with their defensive line and the linebackers, rather than necessarily mixing too much of the Jack in there. But the blitzing has been really, really effective, and it's coming from the middle. Even though the outside blitzes were something that they were really doing well today, and it may be better than I've seen them do it in a while with the linebackers.
Yeah, it feels like it's coming from unpredictable guys in unpredictable places, which is what you want. You don't want to be predictable. You don't want to be. You don't want to be bringing 6 guys, but you want to be bringing 4 guys from different places, and maybe it's 5, but you got to kind of mix it up, keep teams off balance. And Indiana, I don't know if they didn't know where it was coming from. They had no answers for it. That was for sure.
Yeah. The guy Gurley, so impressed with Trey and the slide. Are they practicing slides this year, as they seem to be more apparent at the end of Buckeye games? Maybe after that first slide of the season, they're like, you know what, let's work on this stuff. But that's a really, really heady play by somebody that didn't need to be so heady at that point. You completely understand it. I was just really, taken aback, impressed, or whatever, just surprised maybe that Ryan Day is like, no, I want this touchdown. Similar to they went for it on 4th down at one point rather than there's something else that Day did that was like, it was aggressive and it was surprising. I think
they went for it on a 4th and 1 with maybe 8 minutes left, 10 minutes left in the game, something like that. There was a drive in the 4th quarter that it was like they got to a 4th and 1 and it was kind of near midfield. It might have been just over midfield. And I remember thinking, this is, they might just punt this and play it safe. And the old Ryan Day, absolutely. 2019 Ryan Day punts that ball and plays it safe. And this was, I don't know how much of that is 2024 Ryan Day and leave no doubt Ryan Day, and how much of that is I don't respect this team on the other sideline. But either way, it didn't seem like there was, they didn't have to call a timeout and debate it. It was just like, all right, go. And they got it comfortably. And I think they punched in a touchdown on that drive. But that was Ryan Day sort of living up to what he says he wants to do and how he wants to manage the game. I did think it was fascinating, Tony, in the 4th quarter. I talked to Kevin on the morning show on Friday about what's Indiana going to do? If Indiana's down, are they going to play to win, or are they going to play to manage the score? And I had folks on our board who were pretty sure, you play to win. And it's like, that's very easy to say on Thursday. It is very easy to say we are going to go all out. And then, the scenario I put out was not exactly what was there. I think I said down 14 points and it's 6 minutes left or something like that. They were down 21, I think, points at that point. And it was 4th and 10 at midfield, and it was like 11 minutes left in the game. And it's like, you have to score 3 times. There are not that many possessions left in this game, and they punted. And then there was another one on the next drive where they got sacked and they ended up punting again. Like, you punted twice in the 4th quarter when, you're probably not going to make it. But if you really are, winning this game is the single most important thing, you go for it there, even if the odds are against you. He did feel like he was sort of managing the game to the scoreboard a little bit. And even their last drive, they go down the field, but they go down the field methodically. It was not That was a 15-play, 75-yard, 7-minute and 3-second drive. That was a drive that ended after the 2-minute warning. It started with 8:56 left in the fourth quarter and ended with minute 53, and it got it to 31-15, and went for two, and then it's like, well, it's only a 2-score game.
So we said we're standing there at the back of the end zone. It's like, well, this is perfect for everybody, basically.
The folks at the Big Ten office are going to go stroll outside and go have a nice dinner at Fogo de Chao to celebrate that last touchdown because it helps the Big Ten in terms of the college football playoff, and everyone was okay with that except for Ryan Day.
No, I will be interested to go back and watch. Were they milking the clock on that last drive? Because I don't remember. I was getting ready to come downstairs at that point, but
they were not
there was
hustling to the line.
You can't hurry up and run 7-minute drive.
They were snapping with they weren't snapping with 2 seconds on the play clock, but they were snapping with 9-10 seconds left on the play clock, not 20. They were not in any enormous hurry there, and there was a lot of running the ball on that drive. It was just they wanted to get one more score, and by golly, they got one more score.
Shadrick Bell saying the backs and flats have been open all year. I think they've done a better job of getting them involved, but they missed. Will Howard missed the one to start the game, but I like the way they use the running backs and they could probably do some more screens, like actual screens, rather than the running screens. I don't even have to read something. I just see you read it and I just start to smile.
I don't even need to ask who punched that one up.
So this is from Jeff Frazier. Kevin is the Bret Hart of Buckeye Huddle, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. He is also, not a lot of people know this, Kevin is Canadian.
I thought he was the Owen Hart of no.
Too soon.
No.
Too soon.
Too soon? Okay. All right.
He's the Gary Hart.
Warpug. Here's some monkey business for you. Warpug says, so have the Bucks held anything back for Michigan? Yes. I'm going to say yes. And they have not probably held back as much as they would have in the last couple years, because this year they should be able to handle their business. Michigan should not score more than 13 points, 14 points. I mean, what
that's including the first drive.
Well, yeah, you get one on the first drive, you get one in the second half, or if Will Johnson's playing, maybe you get a defensive score.
Pete Thamel said he's out
for
the season. He's not going to play today, and he's not going to play next week.
Well,
is what I was told.
Well,
so it's unfortunate. He didn't shut down. He didn't shut himself down, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And producer confirms Will Johnson not playing next week. So yeah, it's okay. So now they've got to score one in the first drive and then one in the second half. But they're going to have stuff. They're going to have variations on stuff. It would be really funny if they ran a flea flicker. It would be really funny if Ohio State ran a flea flicker. That would be objectively funny if they did that.
It's that's Michigan's necessary play to get 12 yards, and now you're running it and picking up 75 yards on it.
The phrase you're looking for is gimmick infringement.
Gimmick infringement, yes. Speaking of Odysseus 2002, does Tony glaze his turkey with ketchup for Thanksgiving? No, it's a meatloaf. It's a deep fried meatloaf, and then you put the ketchup on afterwards.
Yep. All right. Sir Eric M says, never been a huge fan of dropping in the rankings after losing to a higher ranked team. Basically, you're punished for doing what the committee expected. And that was until Ohio State scored the last one. That game was within. I mean, at one point, this line this week was 13.5, and then they were losing by 16. So, were they losing by more than that before that? Yes, but with a minute left on the clock, they were down 16. So that game went broadly how you would sort of have expected it.
Who should pass them? Everybody else has a worse loss or multiple
we'll
losses.
see what Notre Dame does tonight. Alabama's plays no one.
But again,
Georgia
Notre Dame has a loss to Northern Illinois.
Right, yeah. Georgia looked terrible. Ole Miss lost.
This is where it
Tennessee
gets
beat no one. Miami didn't have a great game. I mean,
no, it's just this team had a better win. What is Indiana's best win?
Well, and you're going to know this week, Tuesday night at 7:00 or whatever it is, you are going to know what the committee is going to do with Indiana, because they now are not going to be in the Big Ten championship game, barring a huge Michigan upset here next week, and so their resume is more or less in stone. I'm sure they're going to go out and they're going to try and put up 1 million points on Purdue, but the resume is more or less in stone. So if they want to, if they're going to drop Indiana to 12 and put them like on the fringes, they might not get back in. But if they drop them a spot or two, then they're saying you are in. So Indiana will know probably very likely what the deal is.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is going to drop out, so Georgia and Tennessee will move up. Now it's just, does Indiana stay in front of the Georgia Tennessee, or if they drop down behind them, then they may be in some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep. Geiger Lee says, for this week, are we going to be treated to the soothing, dulcet tones of Tom reading Big Ten bylaws to us?
Hey,
we don't. Yeah, there is. We'll see. I mean, the reason that's getting asked about is Michigan's response to the notice of allocations is due this week. I don't know what's going to come out. That there was the report that Michigan's not going to release the FOIA on the notice of allegations until the Monday before Christmas, like the 23rd of December, to bury it in as deep as they possibly can. I don't know. We will, if there is if there is news, we will do. I'm sure we will be talking about it, and if not, there will be plenty of other stuff to talk about this week.
I mean, if this hit, I can't even imagine the number of streams and the length of time that will be on if that hits also this week.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be wrapping up like one show and then boom, it'll drop. It's like, well, I guess we're here for another 2 hours.
Just we'll wrap it up and just stay on the same stream and just start a new show. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Boy,
what in the world?
Mike Farino says Minnesota blocked a Penn State extra point, ran it back for 2 points. 19-16 Minnesota at half. Absolutely they did.
Scored on a touchdown on a flea flicker as well, by the way.
Oh man, yeah. Arizona State 21, BYU 3 at halftime. Colorado coming back, and it is now 23-14 Kansas just before halftime. So boy, a lot of interesting games. And
does the regular season still matter?
Tony, I was reliably informed that no one would care. Missouri ranked somehow. Missouri up 14-10 to Mississippi State early in the second.
Hey,
quarter.
That's an SEC win if they get it.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, and even if they don't, it's a quality loss.
Wisconsin down 24-10 at Nebraska.
Well, you know what? If Nebraska wins, I will be extremely happy for Nebraska. Yeah. I will be extremely happy for Nebraska. All right, so Mike Ferguson says no pickleball, but can we get a December time lapse of the St. Pickles transformation?
Should it be like an advent calendar, which is a pickle at dates?
Well, there's like German tradition is you hang a little pickle ornament on your Christmas tree and you hide it, and the kid who finds it gets a prize. I mean, maybe that's
not.
No?
Okay.
All right. So we have a lot of different areas we could go to. Do we have sound? Okay. So I know we have Kurt Signetti. I'm assuming we'll want to save that for a little later on. Do we have other stuff that is ready?
No,
We have Signetti. Okay. So do we want to do photos first?
Sure.
We want to do
let's do photos.
because it feels like we've got to do a little bit of Michigan talk too. So let's go through some game photos real quick. Go ahead and punch those up whenever we got them. Okay, so yeah, there's that was Caden Curry taking down the Indiana punter on, he
pick on somebody your own size. This guy.
It's rare that life gives you a second chance at something so quickly. He missed the punter last week. It worked out fine. David Adolph blocked the punt against Northwestern. This is like what's the Tom Cruise movie where it's Day After Tomorrow, I think, where he has to keep doing stuff over and over again until he gets it right. And so he
it's not The Day After Tomorrow, but I know what you're talking about. It's really good. It's a good movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Cocktail. No, it's different. No, Days of Thunder. Yes. But yeah, he didn't get a chance to do it last week. It worked out fine. Did get a chance to do it this week. This one, this was. Well, no, apparently not, because they didn't throw a flag. This was one that was like you had all these penalties called, and it was like, this is what we're talking about with Davis and Igbenogson. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't get called. There's stuff that doesn't get called both ways. But it always gets called on Davis and Igbenogson. This is like right at the point of attack, and there's Caleb Downs getting his jersey tugged, and it's perfectly fine to not call that. It's not the most egregious thing, but I saw that, and it was like right after they had called another thing on Davis and Igbenogson.
Yes, Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow. There we go. This is Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles had a really good day. Linebackers on the whole played a really, really good day. Sonny was happy with that play, as you can see there. There's Jack Sawyer and there's Curtis Rourke. Just kind of, this is the one I think where someone said he was just kind of like going into the fetal position. Jack is, sort of breaking down there because he doesn't want to go flying past him. And Jack Sawyer also very happy about that play.
So I asked Jack Sawyer after the game, how quickly do your thoughts turn to Michigan? He's like, already. Like, this game, he's like, no offense to Indiana, this game is done. It means nothing.
Yeah. Yep. This was Carnell Tate. This was on the 3rd and 35 play where really made a nice catch to haul that in on the sideline and turn a 3rd and 35 into a 4th and 10. How many times, Tony, do you think a team converts a 3rd and 35 and gets 0 points out of the drive? I feel like that's got to be like, that has happened twice in college football in the last 7 years.
Can you have scoregami situations?
It feels like that. Yeah. Boy, that was, they convert the 3rd and 35 and it was like, oh, they're going to win this game for sure. And then they don't score on the drive. It's like,
and there's the fumble. Cody Simon forces that. I'm like behind Cody Simon, so I never saw the ball.
Yep. That was, and then this is Caleb Downs running back that punt for a touchdown.
And there's CJ Hicks getting ready to plant that dude.
Yep. CJ Hicks with a nice block there. Yeah. That was a, like one of those like, family circus cartoons where you have the dotted line and he's that was not a straight a straight line Ted Ginn touchdown punt return. That was a little bit here, a little bit there, left, right.
Ted Ginn also told him he tweeted out that Caleb Downs is gonna score a punt return touchdown this week.
Well,
he knows.
He does. And then this is Jelani Thurman celebrating his touchdown. Jelani Thurman, that touchdown was too close to me. He had his back to me and all I just have is like the back of his jersey. I'm like, well, it's in sharp focus, but
the photographer's lament.
Yes.
Something was too close to me.
Yes. Yeah, his back. So let's real quick hit the Kurt Signetti post game because I know you guys heard like the whole Ohio State post game. I think you probably heard a little bit of this earlier, but Kurt Signetti had some interesting stuff to say. He's a fascinating guy. He is. He comes up, you'll hear him come up and it's just kind of like, well, that didn't go well. And it was just kind of like very off the cuff. But then he'll complain about not getting a couple calls, but then be like, well, it's not that's why we lost. It's, give them credit. But, and then it's like, you look at all the calls they did get and it's like, well, but these. And one of them was that you're going to hear him talk about a call, and that was the one where it was 3rd and 1, and Tyleik Williams acted like the right guard had moved or flinched, and just went across and just busted him right in the pads, knocked him on his butt.
And I think the discussion there was Tyleik Williams was the thought was that from the silent count, the guard moving and signaling. Triggered him, and then they show on the replay of the television, he's like, after they call it on a false start, he's kind of like laughing, like I got away with one.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Kurt Signetti won't like that part either.
So that was the first thing you're going to hear him talking about here. So, all right, let's let you hear a little bit from Kurt Signetti, and then we're going to get into the Michigan game.
All right. Well, in life, all good things come to an end eventually. I give Ohio State a lot of credit. They dominated the football game. I thought we got off to a good start. And good football game there for a while, 7-7. Came up with a turnover on defense and a 4th down stop. And then we got a 1st down on offense at 7-7. And then we come up 3rd and 1. And by all indications, they jumped off sides, which would have given us a 1st down. But, we got called for the penalty. I'm not sure they made the correct call. And we came up 3rd and 6, and we got sacked. And from that point on, and I'm not saying the game would have been different on that call. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's where the game really changed, I'd say, is around that point. We couldn't protect the quarterback. We had communication errors in pass pro. Every time we dropped back to pass, something bad happened. And it seemed like we were in that end zone to our left for 5 years. It was like a nightmare. We dropped a punt down back there. And really, we were fortunate to go into halftime only 7 points down. And they've been a great third quarter team, Ohio State. Couldn't get anything going still on offense. They had big punt return, So I was proud of the way we fought back and got it to within 2 scores there, 31-15, but didn't like the fact that we gave up the run and the easy touchdown at the end. But they won. They deserved to win. They're a terrific football team. And coupled with the noise, it made it a very, very, very challenging day for us. And I give them nothing but credit. Nothing we haven't seen on tape. We practiced all week long. I think you couple it with the noise and having to go to a silent count because center couldn't hear, and then the speed at which they do it at compared to our scout team and the pressure of the moment, our guys just didn't respond very well. And sometimes we had missed assignments, sometimes we had communication error, sometimes we got physically beat, but it wasn't very pretty. No, I think we came out, I felt good at halftime. And here's how I felt. We were down 14-7, fortunate to be only 7. That's how I felt. And all we had to do is get our feet back on the ground and kind of settle the game down a little bit. And that the longer the game went, the pressure then would shift to them if we could stay, within striking distance. But then they had those scores, and we just couldn't respond. We did start to get a little ground game going, but, we'd call a pass and get sacked and get way behind the chains. So I was proud that we scored that last touchdown, and made the 2-point conversion, 31-15. You're kicking an onside kick. Now, who knows, but then, so. And so, I mean, that's that.
So that was Curt Signetti. I mean, he was asked later on, what, do you think your team belongs in the college football playoff? And I said, is that a serious question? Are you actually asking me that? And he didn't answer. He just said, the answer's obvious. Of course he thinks they're a college football playoff team. And that was not, they got beat, but, Ohio State's going to do that to a lot of teams. Ohio State has done that to a lot of teams this year. And they had to come to Columbus. Penn State and Oregon got Ohio State in their places. So, that was probably a little closer, a little more competitive than a lot of Ohio State Indiana games we've been to over the years. But this was also a game where Ohio State was not sleepwalking into this game. The Indiana game is generally one that's okay, it's like driving over a speed bump. You probably slow down slightly, but you're not coming to a full stop and really check. It's not a 4-way stop. You're just, it's okay, Indiana, boom, all right, next game. And this is one where Ohio State was pretty clearly dialed in, and had to work for their win.
If you say the words Xander Diamant to Urban Meyer, he might be like, where? One of those Indiana games that you do overlook, man. And then you almost lose it.
What was it, 52-49 or something?
Yeah, and they had they had a shot to throw the ball into the end zone from the 30-yard line or whatever. Yeah. So there have been some interesting ones against Indiana. So this one interesting as well. And Ohio State comes out with the emphatic win. Super chat from Mike Ferguson. Curt Signetti is Tom Allen 2.0. That's interesting because they're both very energetic, and a lot of it it's not false bravado because with Curt Signetti, because they do win. It may have been false hope with Tom Allen, but you still need, as long as you have the players. He had a player for a while. He had some players for a while. Then you lose Michael Penix, and suddenly things go to heck. Let's see what this Indiana team looks like next year. I'm a fan of Curt Signetti because if you Google him, Tom, he wins.
Boy, did Ohio State jump on the Google me thing. Holy smokes. Ohio State jumped on that quite a bit. They had a picture of him on the scoreboard at the end of the game. I'm just going to pull it up. I took a picture of it, put it on Twitter. It said extra Buckeyes win ? Google it, and they had Kurt Signetti standing on the sideline and a video of Kurt Signetti in the middle of like the newspaper. It was pointed, which I mean you can. There is a certain amount of when you put yourself out there like that.
Mhm.
Sometimes step 2 is find out,
Yeah.
and it was find out Saturday for Indiana, and that's okay. This is still a team that's in a million miles ahead of where anyone thought they would. I mean, anyone thought they would be back in July, back in August, and now he still has a chance. I think a very realistic chance to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah. So we will let's transition to Michigan for a couple of minutes. If you guys have some super chats, we'll stick around a little bit longer. The crowd today, if that's the same crowd next week, Ohio State will have an advantage there because we could only hear so much in the press box. You'd have a better idea of what it was, but this was the best crowd that I've seen at Ohio State in a while. Give them credit. It's a noon game, I know, but they were in their seats. They were ready to go. They were loud and they were active all game long.
Yeah, the crowd was an absolute factor because it wasn't, Indiana had a delay of game penalty, which I would assume is probably maybe at least somewhat related to the crowd. They had the false start penalty, which was maybe not a false start penalty, but you can credit that to the crowd if you want to. But I think another piece of that, and this is another thing that Signetti, I think, maybe talked about later on in the press conference, was the fact that they had to go to the silent count. That maybe makes it a little easier for Ohio State to time things up because it's, okay, the right guard taps the center on his leg, and then the center gets ready to snap it and snaps it, and it's kind of on the same basic rhythm. So you can maybe time up that snap a little more, and that maybe makes it a little easier to get through a little quicker. But yeah, I think you have to credit the crowd. The crowd got the Buckeyes were very pointed this week, asking the crowd to be loud. They put out social media videos, talked about it in interviews, showed those interviews on the scoreboard on third down plays. I mean, the message was very clear, and the crowd got the message, and crowd did their job, and that's what home field advantage is.
Yeah, and Buckeyes will have that home field advantage next week when Michigan comes to town. The Wolverines currently up 24-6 early in the third quarter. They have Tony Alford has remembered to play Kalel Mullings, who has a couple of touchdowns in this one and 79 yards rushing on 7 carries so far. Tom, based on everything we have seen from Michigan, is there any reason other than it's Michigan to not expect a similar score outcome that we saw in this one? Because the running, I think Michigan, I don't know that they'll be able to run the ball as well as Indiana did in this one. Certainly you wouldn't expect them, they'll throw the ball better than Indiana because Indiana was so bad. But I like the Indiana passing game better than Michigan, so I don't know that you can necessarily expect Michigan to do better than what Indiana did in this one. The defensive line again controlled this game for Ohio State. I have not seen anything from the Michigan offensive line to think that the same thing couldn't happen to them next week.
I think get ready to hear the name Evan Link a bunch this week. Yeah. I think that's going to be a name that you hear a bunch from us and perhaps from others. Davis Warren, 19 of 24, 79% completions, but only 6.9 yards per completion. Yeah. So it's just a bunch of dink and dunk. Kalel Mullings has a 47-yarder, so that's a big chunk of their offense right there. It's Michigan. When Michigan looks good and puts up impressive numbers or impressive scores, they do it one way. When they look terrible, they do it the same way. It's just slightly worse. It's not like, oh, look, Happy learned how to putt. Michigan's throwing for 15 yards an attempt and they're running for 50 yards a rush. They're running for 5.2 yards per carry, and that's 17 carries for 89 yards, but 47 yards on one, and 16 carries for 42 yards. So that's that's like not quite 3. That's like 2.5 yards per carry, and then there's one long run. So I think there is a certain generation of Ohio State fans, like when they divide everything into different generations, Gen X Ohio State fans will never, ever, 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 ever go into a Michigan game and say, no problem, what could possibly go wrong? there's just never going to happen. I think the younger Ohio State fans are kind of probably going to go in with that sort of a mindset, but I can assure you the folks at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center are not going to go in with that mindset this week, because they, there's probably a chunk of the Ohio State fan base that is taking for granted that, of course, Ohio State's going to win. Michigan's not very good this year, and so of course Ohio State's going to win. This is still probably very personal for Ryan Day, and I think Curt Signetti may have talked his way into let's just call it Club Loxley, in terms of Ryan Day probably putting an exclamation point on things. I'm going to say, Tony, that Sharon Moore has probably talked his way into Club Loxley as well. And if Ohio State has a chance, you're not throwing out the kitchen sink. You're not using all your good stuff next week. But if Ohio State has a chance to, kick them while they're down, I don't know that they're going to be like, oh no, we wouldn't want to do that. That would be bad for the rivalry.
There's nobody sliding at the one next week in any form or fashion.
Travion Henderson does the
He's
Curtis
flipping into
Samuel. He's doing the Curtis Samuel tape break on the way to the end zone is what he's doing if that happens next week.
And that is a 12 p.m. kick on Fox, if you haven't heard, noon games. But again, the crowd was awesome this week. They'll be able to get back up for it this next week. And anything we are gonna talk about Ohio State, Michigan all week long, so we don't need to spend a ton of time on it today. I'd say glad to be here. It's the best week of the year.
People need to hit the thumbs up if they haven't hit the thumbs up already. Please do that. We need you to do that for us. But yeah, this coming up. Let's sort of set the stage for the week, because I feel like we know what this is because we do this every year. But we've picked up a bunch of subscribers, so we will tend to do a bunch this week. Like we have a certain big game week thing where we'll put out a bunch of extra content. We will do that this week. We also know a lot of you guys are traveling this week, so we will try and front load stuff as much as we can this week. Like we'll have some stuff on Wednesday and Thursday as well, because we know you want to throw an earbud in while your relatives are talking politics at the dinner table. But you're probably driving, and while you were going over the hills and through the woods, you would probably love to have a podcast to listen to. That's about Thanksgiving. That's not Christmas. No, it's about Thanksgiving. Fun fact. Anyway, so we'll try and get you a bunch of stuff earlier in the week. Michigan does their press conferences on Monday, so we'll have coverage of Michigan and what they've got going on Monday. Ohio State does their press conference on Tuesday, and then that's it. We do not have the normal Wednesday evening midweek interviews that we normally do. This is an every year Michigan thing. It's just you get them once. You get Michigan on Monday, you get Ohio State on Tuesday, and then you see them on Saturday.
Yes or no? When we get to the Woody on Tuesday, it's time for war. We'll be playing.
That was an urban thing. We have not heard it's time for war in a long time. We have not heard it's time for war since 2018, and that was. I'm assuming people remember this, but that urban used to just play that over and over. It was just like on an old CD player, you'd hit repeat, and then you'd hit repeat one, and you would just have that one song playing. That was it. It's time for war over and over, and we would just be in there for interviews and be sitting there for half an hour before interviews, and you'd start to lose your mind.
It's psychological terror. It's warfare.
And that was something he did at Florida for the Florida State game. I mean, that was not a brand new thing for Urban at Ohio State. That was one of the welcome changes that Ryan Day brought to the Ohio State program when he took over.
Well, you hear some people talk about it, and that's one of the reasons Ohio State is losing, because he doesn't take the rivalry seriously enough. So there you go. Doug Shepard, thanks for the excellent show, guys. Are you guys going to tie the Michigan press conference into Michigan Monday? We're going to tie everything into everything. We've done in the past. We probably will again. Like we'll look at Ohio State's running game against Michigan's run defense in one show, and then Michigan's pass defense against whatever. Like we're gonna break it down 6 ways from Saturday, if you will.
And we'll probably try and get Michigan Monday done. Maybe on Sunday if we can figure out the timing of the. We got to go watch the game. Unfortunately, they're not playing the night game tonight, where we can just watch it live, and so we'll try and get that early Monday. So that'll probably. Hopefully be done before
maybe Sunday night.
Michigan, maybe Sunday night, and then Michigan press conference is like 11 a.m. or noon on Monday, and then So then we'll have plenty of coverage on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed, plenty of coverage on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast feed, plenty of coverage at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and of course, Tony, plenty of coverage at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
In fact, and if you want to join now, become a premium subscriber, $4.99 for your first month. And as you know, this first month, if you haven't joined up yet, is going to be could be a whale of a month. So sign up now, say hello to us there. We would love to have you there. It is a great way to support what we do. So that being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. We do appreciate it, and we will talk to you guys later.